And if you are recording.
Thank you very much. Chair Kunzman, would you be able to start the meeting at your convenience?
Yeah. Hold on, let me get the right window up here. Welcome to the November version of the City of Boulder's Cannabis Licensing and Advisory Board. We shall start with virtual meeting and our rules of decorum.
Thank you very much. I am going to share my screen and I will read aloud the rules of decorum. The city has engaged with community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversations. This vision supports physical and emotional safety for community members, staff, and board commission members, as well as democracy for people of all ages, identities, lived experiences, and political perspectives. More about this vision and the project's community engagement process can be found at bouldercolorado.gov/services/productive-atmospheres. Following are examples of rules of decorum found in the Boulder Revised Code and other guidelines that support this vision. These will be upheld during this meeting. All remarks and testimony shall be limited to matters related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation against any person. Obscenity, racial epithets, and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the ability to conduct the meeting are prohibited. Participants are required to sign up to speak using the name they are commonly known by, and individuals must display their whole name before being allowed to speak online. Currently, audio testimony is permitted online. We do have under agenda item number 2, public comment for the board. When it reaches that time and you are a member of the public, you're welcome to raise your hand when called upon to begin the process, and you will have a 3-minute timer to make your public comment. Also, of note for the CLAB meeting for today and from here on out, we've received notification of a procedure change for how this meeting is recorded. Currently, we have, with every meeting, we record the audio, and the audio is put into our Laserfiche website at the conclusion of the meeting, usually within the next day. And that will continue to stay a procedure, but they are adding that the video recording of this meeting, beginning with this one, will also be uploaded to the city's YouTube account. So just as an FYI, that's this meeting will be posted to the city's YouTube page within the next upcoming days. Also note for the board that Kathy Haddock is currently traveling, and she will be joining this meeting at a later time today. Okay.
Thank you, John. You want to do roll call?
Yes, thank you. Continuing with member roll call, if I speak your name aloud, please mark your presence known. Member Anderson. Member Evan Anderson.
You're mute, Evan.
Let me see here.
Member Anderson, it probably was because your co-host permissions went away for some reason. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Okay, I can come back.
I am here.
Okay.
I'm here. There we go.
Thank you very much.
It was making me ask to unmute. I apologize.
No problem. Thank you very much. Member Christie.
Present.
Thank you. Member Green.
Present.
Member Keegan.
Present.
Member Kunzman.
Present.
Member Malone.
Present.
Member Noble.
Present.
Member Thompson.
Present.
And we received note that Member Bailey will not be present today. So we do have a quorum of 7 voting members and 1 ex officio member.
Do you have additional information that she's going to miss the whole meeting or just parts of it?
I believe she will be missing the full meeting.
Okay.
Continuing with agenda item number 1 is the approval of Cannabis Licensing and Advisory Board meeting minutes from the October 3rd, 2022 meeting.
All right, any discussion on the minutes from October? If none, then maybe a motion to approve
Brian motions to approve.
and a second on that. Someone can second it. I guess I can second it. All right, I'll second it.
Thank you.
Anyone opposed or abstaining on approving the minutes from October? Okay. So next we'll go on to general public comments for the board.
Yes.
John, do you want to read the rules?
Certainly. If there are members of the general public who wish to make public comment, please in your reactions bar at the bottom of your screen, please raise your hand and we will add your name. There we go. We're back on.
Thanks for catching that. I don't know what happened, but it's back on.
Thank you, Caitlin. I appreciate that. Once again, if you are a member of the if you are a member of the public and you wish to make public comment, please click on that reaction button at the bottom of your screen and raise your hand, and you will have 3 minutes to make comment. I currently do not see anyone wishing to raise their hand, Chair.
Just to reiterate, the comments do not have to be 3 minutes long. You can make a public comment without having taken up your whole 3 minutes of time.
Thank you for that.
I see a couple new, at least, I don't know if the people are new, but the names are new. The Health Center and L. Parker, I don't recognize. But okay. Well, then we'll officially close public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 3, the Boulder Marijuana Hospitality City provisions continue discussion.
All right, so we have plenty of time to be working on this. This is in your reading packet, starting at page 19. Am I right there?
That looks right to me, Tom.
Okay, draft recommendations to City Council. And it's been some new stuff added. In fact, I noticed that under each item, there is sometimes information for support and oppose, and I'm wondering if those are correctly labeled and are more accurately described as the majority and minority opinions. And I guess I'll use the concentrates on, I think it's on page 21 as an example. The motion was recommend that marijuana concentrates shall be one of the permitted types of products, but the support appears to be more the opposition to that, and the oppose is support of that. Am I correct in my reading?
That's correct, Tom. It's just that, you know, we're trying to use parallel formatting in terms of the way that the being accurate with the way that the motions were worded.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about changing it to majority and minority, or
But maybe Brian, you could speak to that. I know that was your suggestion. for support and oppose versus.
Yeah, so I had a similar kind of response that I think it requires a little bit of extra work just to triangulate the like support oppose into sort of shall be, shall not be kinds of things going on in the statements. And so I would say, again, like if you had a majority minority kind of statement, I think that might track more clearly. The other thing I just wanted to raise as a process thing was in our planning meeting, I don't know, Kristen, if you wanted to introduce the shared drive at this point, or are you planning to do this at some other point?
It was going to be today, it looks like.
Sure, I can provide just a quick overview. There were instructions in the meeting packet, just kind of tips and tricks on how to edit the shared document. Just a few things to keep in mind that you want to make sure that you're not deleting any comments that are made. Comments are made really similar to the way that you edit a document in Microsoft Word, if you're familiar with that process. So if you're leaving a comment or replying to a comment, please make sure that you're not deleting any of those so that we can retain them for public record. And then also just another note that there's 3 ways that you can, like 3 modes that you can choose from when you're editing the document. There's an editing mode that you can use to actually make changes, and multiple members can all log in and make changes at the same time, which is great. There's a reviewing mode if you just want to add comments and suggest changes without actually making the change in the document. And then lastly, there's a viewing mode where you can just view the document without making any changes or suggestions. And members of the public will have access to the viewing mode. They will not be able to edit, but all of the CLAB members and city staff have the ability to actually edit the document. So it's really similar to Microsoft Word. Does anyone have any questions, or has anyone had any issues making changes or reviewing the document?
So again, I just want to reiterate something that Kristen said, that we want to make sure we're in a reviewing mode so that all the changes are being tracked. We're not just like making the changes directly, so that we can perhaps decide as a board or in some other capacity whether or not to approve or reject changes. That might be too fine-grained of control. This document is a product of both work that where did you go? No, Robin did, as well as I did. It's not complete. It's not meant to be authoritative. It's meant to just kind of be this kind of first draft. So we definitely want to sort of engage with this. And then the last point that I would add would be, I just forgot, so I'll stop talking.
Thank you. So you want to stop short of suggesting that people mostly do reviewing mode and not do editing mode, or?
I would say stick to the reviewing mode and or leaving comments.
Okay.
Oh, so the last point I was going to raise was that in this is new for us. And so a suggestion or something that I would maybe want us to consider is, if we did have a chance to read this, we could all read this now. This also might be a moment where we work as a board, like in a document, rather than necessarily talking to each other. And that's, again, something I want to think through and work through with you all as well, is like, how do we want to best use this time? Is it to sort of interact with the document, or is it to sort of interact with each other in some kind of sequential way?
Alana?
I was just wondering if there was any record of the kind of guardrails we put on this to jog members' memories of, like, timeline, length, contributions, just any additional parameters and guidelines on drafting this together. Are we, for example, the timeline, like, what is our collective goals for different versions of this, and finalization? Is it by March? And then are we only to touch the position that we voted? Or do we all have access to the full document? And it might be hard to define all of that without a motion, but I still am curious what the understood parameters are.
Beforehand, Robin, do you have further questions, or do you want to comment on that, or
I had a comment on that.
go ahead?
The idea was that there would be the opportunity to express a support position and an opposed position, and that the people who fell in those categories would author and have attributed to them that portion of the document. And so that we wouldn't re-debate some of these things unless there was a question about accuracy, I think, in terms of what was discussed or what transpired during a meeting. That was my thought process on it. The other limitation on here was that the paragraphs are 250 words or less. With respect to the timeline, I'm not sure. I have that question as well.
Okay, thanks for the word count. I forgot that. So 250 words or less. And then it sounds like you don't want substantive, or you would recommend not substantive contributions to the position we didn't take, but potentially like fact-based comments or questions.
Yeah, for instance, if you saw something there that just seemed completely wrong, I think that's worthy of the board taking some time to debate, so we're not putting things through that are factually incorrect. But in terms of,
Great.
Yeah, you got it.
And then do we think that we'll make a motion to finalize it? I think that might make sense, actually, so that it has all of our sign off or majority sign off.
Stacy?
I have some similar questions, but I kind of was wondering if somebody could help me rewind a bit, that maybe catch me up if I'm not understanding. Did we vote on using this format? Like, I'm having a hard time remembering that right now or finding it. So like, did we vote as a board that we should present this document this way? Is that necessary would be my follow-up question to that. Like, did we need to? If not, and if we did, I'm sorry that I somehow spaced that.
I'm going to call on, Brian, go ahead.
Robin can correct me if I was wrong, but I think this is meant to be an effort to communicate our arguments, backing up the recommendations. So just like you would have like opinions of like a Supreme Court or any kind of judicial body, that you sort of like have the sort of the pros and the cons, so that both sides can make their case.
And then the intent is for us, is what you're saying? Like, this is more for our use here together. We're not planning to submit this, or we are?
I think this is intended to be submitted to City Council as an appendix to sort of like outline our logics for how and why the board voted in these ways. Again, keeping in mind that, yeah.
That's kind of why I guess I wanted to step back for a second and find out, like, did we need to vote on that? That we all agree to use this format as it stands, that this works for us all? Was that like, just as far as, I don't know, statutorily is probably the wrong word, but is there anything about that we would need to have considered, like to have voted that we agree to use this format? I mean, like last meeting, I think became clear that there was this format just brought in a lot of, I'm going to use the word emotion from people, as I think is naturally attached to all this. So, given all of the ifs, ands, or buts, and we're here discussing how to now format it, I guess I just wanted to find out if we needed to have voted on that. And I'll agree first that this would be, because if we're all presenting it as a board and therefore our names are kind of attached, appended to it, right? Each one of us separately, and yet together as a board, then it seems like maybe we need to first agree that we're going to use this format. And, enough of us agree that that's the way to go. And maybe we do already, and that'll be super easy, but I wasn't sure if we needed to do that or wanted to do that. I'm
not aware of us making any sort of formal motion on this. I think this was an experimental approach that was brought forward by Robin that I was supportive of. And so I think it was something that we sort of want to get some ideas down and get you all to react to. But if this is not a productive way of capturing consensus or sort of providing evidence to back up a recommendation to the council, then I would certainly entertain other ways of approaching this. I'll see this because I know there's a queue stacking up here.
Kate?
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing, whether or not if we did have format recommendations for this or different format ideas, that we could just add it in a comment and like put like a little outline of what maybe another option is, or because I mean, I also have some ideas of what, I mean, I think the general idea of putting both sides, if that's how everybody feels that we should do it, then I think that totally works, having the motion. I think that we may want to have it as a recommendation, and then maybe separate out the things that didn't pass into separate places. You could have a recommendation section and another section, and then here's the recommendation, here's the comment for the supporting of that recommendation, and then here's the other, and then here's how it differs from state law, or, there's a lot of different like variability to like how we could do this. But I just, my question is like, how do you want those thoughts or recommendations on potential changes to the format in this particular document?
I like a lot of what you just recommended real quick, but I want to hear from Kathy. Like what a few of the things you just said, Kate, to me would make it feel a lot more comfortable and fitting to what I understand our objectives to be here as this board.
Kathy?
Thanks. I'm in a shuttle from the airport, and so we'll be in my car soon. But you did decide or say you didn't want the format that I had done, which was just the recommendations. And so there was a discussion. I don't have the minutes in front of me to know which part was voted on, but that you did want to have the reasons why the people voted no and the reasons the people voted yes, which I think will be very helpful to council to include that. If you want another format, I would recommend, and I think this is consistent with what Kate said, that somebody suggest another format. Right now, I know there is a motion to have the public hearing on this in February, which means you have to agree on the language that you want the public hearing on by January. And if you can't even figure out the format that you want at this meeting, that's going to be a hard deadline to meet. So maybe talk about the format you do want, and decide that if you want more motions on that.
Alana?
Well, the January deadline just gave me pause, because that makes me feel like we're going to have to review ordinance language from Kathy and draft and edit this document. And for all of us to do that by January just stresses me out a little bit.
The ordinance language won't be going to council at this point. What will go to council is your recommendations. In order for the ordinance to be drafted, council would have to do a nod of 5 on the parts of the recommendation that they want staff to spend time on drafting. So the only thing that's going to council at this point is the memo that you got, the recommendations that you all are doing. So the document you're talking about. So it should be the format that you want. And then there will be a cover memo from staff explaining kind of the process of why this is being done, why you guys are recommending this, and what their next steps are under the code.
Okay, thanks for the clarification, Kathy. So I guess I was referring to the memo that you were beginning to draft on September 7th, or it's dated September 7th. Were you going to complete that, or was our exercise as board members going to replace that?
This document that you have in front of you is going to replace the memo that I drafted, is my understanding of what the board wanted.
Thanks.
Evan?
Yeah, just to quickly clarify, Kathy, you said February. Isn't that a self-imposed date? Or is that something
Yes.
that is actually fixed by council?
No, it was self-imposed by a motion that you guys approved, I believe, at the September meeting,
Yeah, 2 months ago. I thought so.
which I assume, Evan, if you're going on, I mean, you can always, as a board, you can do a new motion if you want to supersede that. That's not
Certainly,
set
yeah.
in
I just want to
stone
make sure
because
that I
of-
understand that we are not actually bound by February if we're not actually ready to do it yet.
Absolutely.
Do those that have expressed concern have an alternative method to communicate our discussions to the city council?
I thought the basic idea that Kate was describing could, at least in my mind, be useful. I'm used to reading reports more that way. Tom, you probably are in the past too, where you see, you know, page 1, here's the plan, here's like the important highlights, if you will. And then if you need to or want to explore further in the backstory, you can, and this all would be there. But as I look through it, and I really do come at this from a more neutral standpoint, if you will, it feels to me like a really, I keep using the word emotional, but that's what keeps popping into my mind, document, as opposed to like a more pragmatic one. And I think it's really important to accept there's emotions on every side of this, and like all of us have our own emotions coming from our backgrounds, you know, that are involved here. And so we want that here, of course, like we've already worked on doing, but I think we also need to add that front piece of like, okay, here's, you know, the facts of the case, if you will, and we can, you know, say page 22 is the discussion or whatever you want to call this part. So I would personally feel more comfortable in that format. The only other thing, while we're just kind of on the formatting topic, and I think we were starting to talk more about this in the editing, is anything that's unknown as far as like not really researched, I think we need to like say that, right? Like rather than making statements. And I know, Robin, you had opened the discussion just a few minutes ago to this idea of like, you know, let's be clear on all that stuff. And I really appreciate that, because I want to make sure, you know, that it is clear that this isn't settled science. There's tons of debate and we don't know, but here's our concerns from all these stakeholders. So I think, you know, having that more clear, like references, even if we can, if we're going to say, yeah, there's science behind it, to maybe reference that, because I think, at least if I was a council member, I would want to see that, you know, beyond just the discussion of the board members. So those are kind of my formatting thoughts more, but that kind of jumps further into the document. And I guess we were still on the first part.
Robin?
Would you be willing, Stacy, and other people who kind of have some of these thoughts, to go ahead and engage with the process and use that function that Kristen set up? Like, so there's 3 functions. There's an edit function, there's a comment function, and there's just a view function. And through the comment function, you could go into a particular phrase that you found to be just emotional, and you could suggest something else. So I think that's what we've done here, is to create, we've started with a draft, and we now have the mechanics for everyone to go in and make sure that they, you know, especially if they see something they think is factually incorrect or stands out as just emotional, to go ahead and dig into the document and do the work. And then let's come back and see what we have. I mean, sometimes you have to get off a blank piece of paper to get going. And what I hear is like a lot of worry and concern. And I get that, but sometimes you just have to get off the blank page. And again, if people can take the time between now and the next board meeting, dig in and do some of the work through these mechanics that Kristen set up, I think we could move this issue along.
And yes, that's kind of my second point I was making. Like, you know, I appreciate that we now have that ability here. I think that's great. Like we said, I absolutely will be excited to engage. But I think we need to first finish talking about the overall format, right? Which that's really where my concerns are more than the other stuff. I was actually saying, I appreciate that since our last meeting, there's been this new system put in place and it seems much better on that point. It's more well, do we want a cover page or, something like that? That was kind of, I guess, where I still feel questions and concerns.
Michael, before I go to you, I want to go back to Alana's first question when she started this discussion. And as a question for Kristen and Brian, I'm assuming that in this format, when people make comments, those comments are labeled, or, if somebody does edits even, the person doing the editing, a person doing the commenting has an attribution right there. Is that correct? Is it just like Word, where if somebody changes something, it's easy to figure out who said what?
Theoretically, Kristen can correct me, but that's my expectation. But again, if people want to orient to the document, we can experiment and see what happens. I don't know, do we need like a training session? Everyone write one word.
So then to go back to that, Alana's question about whether people could edit, or, well, Robin kind of just answered it, but whether people can make comments about things that they actually didn't vote for, that they were in opposition to. Well, of course they can. They can, and just like Robin just said, if somebody doesn't like or if somebody feels something's factually inaccurate or the wording is wrong, then, it's an opportunity to go in there and put a comment. And then lastly, to answer Stacy's concern, echoing Kate's suggestion, one could go in and make comments at the beginning, and I would be all for a summary page. And in fact, a summary page that then refers you to someplace else in the document where you can look at the details, just as you suggested, Stacy. And the cool thing about this is that you could be a hyperlink and it could take you right there. So, Michael?
It seems to me like, excuse me, like we've already had this conversation about the formatting. And my recollection was that we were going to put together a document of recommendations laying out which issue we were discussing. We would give the position of the majority on that particular issue, and then give the opposition on that particular issue, and each side was limited to 250 words. It seems like now with all this discussion, we're making this much more complicated than what at least I think it needs to be. And I agree with Robin, like, let's start with the document that we have. And for those that want to contribute, go ahead and contribute, and then let's take it from there and see what we can do with that document. And I also think it's important to remember that we're just an advisory board. So it's council that will ultimately make the decision on these issues, whether we support them or we oppose them. And I think as long as each side feels comfortable that their position has been articulated within the 250 word limit, or if we decide to expand that we shouldn't be going much further than that. Otherwise, I think we're creating a document that's way too complicated.
Alana?
Yeah, I don't think anyone should make any mistakes about how complicated of a task this is to try to accomplish across 9 diverse board members. So I do think that because we are being asked to spend considerable additional time, it's going to take me hours to work through a document like this. And then somebody's going to change everything I do, and I'm going to have to go back and spend more hours again. And then it's going to have to happen again until we ever maybe get somewhere that everybody can agree to. So I think this, because it's demanding an incredible amount of time at the worst time of year possible for families and business owners and probably everybody else in the world, I think we need a vote and a motion to prevail in order to actually demand that all of us set aside the amount of time that's going to be required. I will have to comment on pretty much everything, because to Michael's comment, as to those who want to contribute, we haven't come here every first Monday of the month for years because we don't want to contribute. This is above and beyond. So because of all that, I think this needs to be put in a motion by the people who want to support it. It needs to prevail. It's going to, like I said, demand hours over the next couple of months to get this over the finish line. Even just looking at the very first comments and the very first oppose, I think I pointed this out in the last meeting. Risks of licensing marijuana consumption businesses outweigh potential benefits. It's entirely speculative and unproven, and even something like that I wouldn't be able to support on a factual collective basis. So those are some of my additional concerns about it. And as Michael said, we are just an advisory board. We have a staff who's been super gracious and is here to support this board. And so I just want to note that this additional ask of the membership isn't the design of the board. The design of the board is for us not to do this.
Right.
So my suggestion would simply be that we use this meeting as a working time to like work through this document. And maybe it is the case that we say we're going to spend 20 minutes on the first matter here, and we're going to all read it. We'll leave our comments and then we'll have a discussion about the document. So rather than talking about it and then sort of going into overtime and doing homework outside of class, like actually use this meeting to like work on the document rather than sort of just talking about the document would be my suggestion.
I think that's a good suggestion, Michael.
Yeah, I agree with Brian. I think that's a really good suggestion. I think we need to be very careful though, because, you know, to your point, Alana, you know, you made the comment, if you if you put together your articulation of a position and then you're going to have to go back and edit it based on what people say within our board, I think that's a very slippery slope. I don't think that, for example, and I hate to be this divisive, but if the majority has a position that is articulated in a way that they are comfortable with, I don't think that the opposition to that should have the right or the authority to go in and change what the majority's position is, and vice versa. I agree that what in the earlier discussion, if there's something that is absolutely factually incorrect, that needs to be corrected. But we are, I think, going down or going up a very slippery slope if we, and we are not being realistic if we think that we are going to, at the end of the day, compile a document where we are allowing the majority to edit the minority position and allowing the minority to edit the majority position. I don't think that that should be allowed.
Stacy?
So I appreciate all of that thought, Michael. I'd like to add that there's more to it than that from my perspective. And I'm only speaking for mine, other people can speak from theirs. If I'm signing my name to a document, even if I am part of the for position, not the against, if it says something like the sentence Alana used, risks of licensing outweigh potential benefits, I don't want my name on the document, not because I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't think my opinion matters as much in this moment as not wanting my name professionally appended to a document where there are statements that I don't agree with. So for me, I'm not sure I can be comfortable with this format. Like it really does concern me. And I appreciate that that's beyond many other people's concerns, but that is a concern for me. I don't want to be cited in documents, right, especially ones for a city, with my name attached to statements that I cannot fully support. I just don't, I don't believe I ever signed up for that. And that's why I was saying, did we vote on this format? Because I don't really, it's not as much an issue of like, do I agree or disagree with this format, so much as there's a lot of extensions of it that have to be considered. And as Alana just said, I mean, that's an immense ask of people right now. Like, I honestly, I don't have the time to go through this with a like fine tooth comb and catch things that in like 5 years, someone's going to tell me I was once quoted in a document saying the following. I can't take that on. So I personally feel like I'd either have my name left off of it, or like if we have to go forward with this type of document, or let's just make this more simple. We have spent endless hours debating these things. We have votes, we have recommendations. We could list those really clearly and simply in a summary statement, lacking all of this background. Now, if other members of the board wish to submit documents explaining their opposition with their names appended to it, fine. But I just don't know the added value of that.
Robin?
You know, one thing that might help a little bit would be we could add a phrase, and this is used often, especially in legal documents, that is, we believe, or you could come back to the majority believes or the minority believes. And salting and peppering some of that stuff through here might make it a little more clear that not all board members are of the opinion. And I think another confidence builder about doing it this way that might help members who are feeling nervous or, are unhappy with this format is this format is used by high courts throughout our country. And I think where we made a little mistake, and Brian, speak up if you disagree, but instead of using the words support and oppose, we probably should have for the minority and for the majority. That also puts some more weight into the majority's position on the votes, but gives the minority a place to comment and express clearly what they were thinking. And I think, Stacy, if we went through, for instance, on that very first sentence where we say risks of licensing, blah, 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 the minority believes risks of licensing, blah, blah, blah. That can be very helpful throughout the document. Again, we have a 250 word limit. Everyone on the board has shown up and debated all of these issues. I feel that the council needs the full breadth of our conversations. I realize that the majority of people felt a certain way, but the minority did show up, and the minority is not putting forward information that's not factual. This is the position we've taken after listening to all of the different arguments, the guest speakers, all of those things. And we want an opportunity, which is 250 words on each motion, to present that information to council. We feel like that's something council deserves, and that's certainly the voice that we deserve.
We're not a court. I think that's really important. We are an advisory board. I mean, we're not meant to function as a court. When the court writes those opinions, the justices on each side are very clearly labeled as such, right? In this case, it's not so clear cut. I have opinions on both sides of every one of these things. And sometimes I'm sure that the way that it would be written by some of the people who disagree would be different than others. And so back to Alana's point, it's an immense amount of time that would be required to do this. I mean, maybe we should go forward, like Brian just said, and see, like, let's try it out. But I, at this point, would say it's unlikely in this type of format that I'd be able to be comfortable adding my name to it, like that I had part in this document. It's not that I don't think a lot of hard work's gone in and that it's a really important type of document and useful. It's more, I don't know if it can be done in a way that would remove all of that COI as far as I'm concerned. So.
Michael?
Yeah, Stacy, I mean, to your point, I feel like, we are striving for the same objective, and that is, you're making the comments that there are certain things written in this draft that you don't want your name associated with. And I feel exactly the same way. So to me, at least this preliminary draft addresses that issue because it identifies which members voted in the majority and which members voted in the minority. And to me, that is of the utmost importance in terms of at least having my name tied to this document. And I believe, if I'm hearing you correctly, that's what you're saying, that there are certain things that the way this is written or the positions that are taken, you're not comfortable signing off on. And I think if we can at least identify who sat in the majority, who sat in the minority, And that at least gives that person some level of comfort that, hey, if you're in the majority and you like the way that's written, great, go to, and if you don't like it, then go to those other people in the majority who drafted that opinion and work with them to edit it. That I would hope would give you some level of comfort, at least having your name tied to this document. Because at least that's how I'm looking at it. And I do feel like if you look at the precedents that's been set, like this is our first stab at doing something like this. And I certainly feel like looking at the way the High Court deals with their decisions, having a majority, having a dissenting opinion, we're using that as a benchmark. If that works for us, great. If it doesn't, okay, then we can come up with something different. But to me, again, I want to see that those in the majority can have their name assigned to that majority position and let those folks in the majority work together to come up with a comprehensive 250-word articulation on their position. At least that's how I see it.
Are our names on it now? Because the one I'm looking at, I don't see that. But so are you saying that would be added?
I thought that we had added the names, and maybe that was just something that I was working on offline.
Okay.
But at least, because I agree with you, I felt like, well, wait a second, this document doesn't identify who voted for this way on this particular issue. And I will tell you, I mean, I think we all can recognize I'm probably on the much more conservative side of some of the votes we've taken. And I do not want my name associated with voting in favor of some of these positions that we're passing. And it is very important to me that my name is identified with the positions that I've taken.
I agree with that. That would at least remove, I'd say, half of my concerns with it. I'd still want to know that there's nothing blatant, right? Because we are an advisory, we're not a court, right? That is written on the other side. And so then once again, I think we just have to circle back to the question of, well, how much time is that really going to take? And if that's the ask, is it an appropriate ask, or is that not the intentions of this board, right? Like, I don't know. That's not something I have an answer to. So maybe someone else does.
Well, I think, and I apologize, I don't mean to interrupt in those who have their hands raised, but I think it's important that we take the time to get the document right. To Evan's point, this is an arbitrary timeline that we've set up for ourselves. If we're not comfortable collectively as a board submitting something in January or February, then we just extend that deadline to get a document that we are all comfortable with. That is, at least as a whole for our board, something that we should all feel positive about, that the document that we are submitting, we can all sign off on.
Kate, I'm just going to check back in with you because you did have your hand up before. Evan, did you want to say something?
I'm going to wait.
Okay, Evan.
Yeah, thank you. I'm kind of reviewing a lot of these documents. Obviously, I'm the relative newbie on this court, or on this board, and looking back over a lot of these recommendations. I apologize. This for whatever reason was shared with an inappropriate email for me, and I just got the chance to review this right now. So I'm actually looking at it for the first time. So I've kept my mouth shut here for a minute. One, definitely need to have our names attached to this. Two, I think that this is an effort that can be edited to something that I think most of us could probably stand behind. But as it stands right now, if we want to make declarative statements, we should probably be making references to scientific information. I feel compelled to identify quite a few things in here that are not defended by settled science, to say the least. In kind of looking back at everything, I was provided by a person who's actually here as a guest to this meeting right now, the document that was created by Kathy and Michonne back in March as a summary document for all of the motions that had existed up to that point. I believe it ran through March of this year. It was a very, very objective document. It stated names and positions on every motion that we made and provided a appendix of details related to the minutes about who was saying what. I think there's some ownership in the comments that are being made there, and there's a lot of emotion or a lot of opinion being presented in the document that we're reviewing right now. I think it's probably appropriate for us to not impose a self-imposed number count on some of these subjects. Some of these subjects are not controversial. We're damn near unanimous on some of them. That does not offer the same, that is not as important as a sufficient conversation over something as controversial as what will be seen as very controversial, our 25-year-old limitation or our prohibition on the least impactful secondhand smoke product. I believe from my reading of this, we've now outlawed vape pens inside of consumption lounges. That's going to create a ton of problems. That being said, I don't want to rehash everything that's on this list, but there are a lot of things here that need to be considered. And now that we are seated with a full board, I think it's an appropriate thing for us to entertain the idea that some of this stuff, we had 5 members voting on and no members representing the industry. It's pretty difficult to make an informed recommendation to city council when you don't have a single person on the board voting who actually works in the industry. It presents major concerns to me that we would make recommendations as a board without actually being informed by operators in our space. Obviously, some people are on this board for certain reasons. Some people are on this board because they are in favor of this industry, and some people are on this board because they are not. To not have a representative sample of those individuals and to make recommendations to council as though it were a voice of the board is very concerning to me, to say the least. A lot of this stuff, we had a system, we had a memo style that Michonne and Kathy put together that was extremely objective. It was simply the comments that we made and the votes that we made, and not this level of emotional discussion. And I know that I'm the one who recommended that we do this. I'm not, that's not lost on me. But seeing it in action, I feel like this format is going to be really hard for anybody to embrace on the opposing opinion. So I think we need to make a little bit of consideration that this is a long time coming. Perhaps we should revisit some of these subjects that are currently so divisive. I mean, obviously, a 1-4 vote eliminating 35% of the market, which is concentrates, without a vote from anybody in the industry, and then calling that the recommendation of the Cannabis Licensing Board that just doesn't make any sense to me. If we want to vote on that again and it loses again, then we should at least have a representative sample of this board. And I'm looking at a lot of these, and we don't have that on a lot of these subjects. So I know we're about to have our retreat, and we're going to have a chance to sit down, but having had about 30 minutes to review this document, I have a lot of things I need to say about it. And I think that this goes to further Alana's point that this is a time commitment. If we're going to make the time commitment, we're asking a lot of this board, but I can't certainly stand behind this formatting with these kind of references without substantiated actual peer-reviewed references. And this reads like a prohibitionist document, and it doesn't sit well with me.
Thank you for your, I actually raised my hand just because I wanted to get in official line here. I want to go back to Brian's point, is that right now we're spending a lot of time discussing discussing the how, but we could be spending this time discussing the what. And the reality is that if we do what Stacy suggests and just give a, like a 1-page-ish kind of summary and present that to city council, it's going to be backed up by, if they want to look at it, they can look at all the minutes for all the meetings and have all the information, including this document. And so, it's already there in the public. If we did a 1-page summary, and then those that are supporting a proposition or opposing a proposition list their own things directly to city council, that takes it away from a public forum. This is supposed to be a public forum. It's supposed to be a place where we can all discuss it. This was the opportunity and the method created to try to do this publicly. So I would again go back to what Brian said, that we could be spending this time moving forward, I guess. The city, I mean, we owe it to the constituents that we're representing to move forward on something like this. This was approved 2 years ago by the state, I mean. All right, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, Tom, I feel like we're moving forward. I feel like we're moving in the right direction. Admittedly, the direction that we're headed is not the direction that I would have chosen, but I respect the vote of the board. And I think that, again, it's important, like, to your point, we have a duty to the community to be doing the job that we were tasked with. And I believe that we are doing that. I feel like we're going to continue to go round and round and round on this debate as to format. And Evan, to your point, I would appreciate it if you could provide the board with the votes that you feel you didn't have, or the industry did not have adequate representation. I'm not aware of that. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but I would be curious to see which of those votes in which you feel that the industry was not represented. Because in essence, what you're asking us to do is to go back, and for every vote that the industry is not happy with, let's have a redo. And I certainly will not support that.
Right. Oh, you're mute, Brian. Whatever you just said was.
Sorry, thanks.
Lost.
Thank you. All right, so I do want to sort of move this issue along. So I do want to propose a motion, and I'll entertain friendly amendments, but it would be something to the effect of the only recommendations to city council shall be the content of the motions themselves, with nothing else. So I believe it was Evan and others have sort of mentioned that, there like a previous memo or agenda sort of like outlined like just all the motions and all the sorts of the people who voted for and against. And so that maybe is the only thing we report to city council. So if you want to have this sort of deliberative style of pros and cons for the majority against the majority, I would encourage you to vote no for my motion. I'm going to vote no on my motion as well, but I will entertain friendly amendments.
I'm not sure that you carried that to the point where you're actually making a motion, or you're willing to entertain amendments and comments to, or corrections to your amendment or to your motion at this time. Is that correct?
Well, it should be a second. If there's not a second, then we can move on to other topics.
I would second that. I would second that motion, because even though I won't support it, I'd like to see what the vote is on that.
Did people have a chance to offer friendly amendments, or just, we didn't get a chance to talk about it?
Yeah, I think we have a discussion and
I think at this
amendments.
point, now there's discussion on the motion. So let's keep our comments to that motion, I guess.
And Brian, could you please repeat your phrasing for the initial motion?
Yes, thank you. The only recommendations that should be reported to city council will be the content of motions themselves and the votes of who is yay and nay. So only the motion, the content of the motion, and only the yays and nays will be the only things reported to city
But the
council.
baseline deliverable is the memo that Kathy drafted. It's not simply the list of motions and votes. There is context in the memo that Kathy drafted. And I think that's the baseline. And we're being asked to consider an exception, which is the member drafted court style. So wouldn't a friendly amendment, or wouldn't the motion be the baseline that the board was the default option of the board, which is having staff draft the recommendation to city council?
Okay,
I
then
think
I'll,
that's what we're debating is, do we want staff to do it or do we want to use this, whatever's left of this meeting, next meeting and the next to continue this?
all right, I accept Alana's friendly amendment. And I'll amend my motion to something like the only thing that will be reported to city council is the staff memo, as well as the motions and the yays and nays.
To enumerate that, can you tell us what page or where exactly we can find that in either the meeting or reading document, and from which month?
It's page 24 of the PDF, page 20, if you're looking at the pages on the page. It says memorandum to CLAB from licensing and city attorney staff, subject draft recommendation to city council. We would all also have the opportunity to edit this the same as the other.
But this goes on, what I'm seeing in front of me goes on to show the support and opposed position.
It's two separate documents. The one that has highlights is Kathy's, and then it just moves right into Robin and Brian's.
To dated September 7th, 2022.
Correct. So I think what Alana's pointing to is, I guess, model or the pro for my motion would be to have this memo and then only the composition of the bolded statements of what the motions are, and adding what the yays and nays were, who the yays and nays were. An opposition would be to explore some other kind of model. So we're really just, do we want to proceed with the city staff, the staff-led memo with the motions and the yays and nays, or do we want to engage in another kind of process? So yes, keep the city staff memo and the list of motions and the yays and nays. No would be, we're going to do another process.
And again, sorry for, I always like to know what I'm voting on. So this would be from page 19, the memorandum, until the bottom of, I think it's page 21, where it says draft. With the highlighted. Is that correct, Alana?
In the PDF, it's pages 24 and 25. And that's the extent of the memorandum.
Of the reading packet.
24. Yeah, I don't have the PDF open. It's open on a web page right now.
So it's the 2 pages that have the letter draft and watermark in the back.
And it's right after that document Kate made with it's called the hospitality resource, the CLAB hospitality resource, like right after that is the memo or memorandum.
Yeah, I think we're talking about the same thing. Okay, Evan.
Not even really sure when I raised my hand on this last one.
To comment
Yeah,
on
just gonna put
Brian's
it down.
motion. Either.
Yeah.
Michael?
Yeah, just as a comment, Brian, to what you're proposing. Hold on, I'm trying to go back to the document here. Me personally, I have no problem with that format that staff drafted, but I feel like we are failing as a board if we are not providing context to these issues. I felt like, again, I feel like we've had this conversation before. I feel like we're now debating a conversation that we've already at least preliminary decided to take a stab at, and that is lay out the issue, lay out in context why the majority voted this way, why the minority voted this way. If we just provide the content that is listed on pages 24 and 25, it's not giving context to council. So in essence, we're just saying to council, here's the issue, here's the vote, here's how each member voted. And here are some bullet points to each of these issues. I think what's important is that we lay out for council, here's what the majority was thinking, and here's why they voted that way. And here's what the minority was thinking, and here's why they voted that way. In my opinion, only then can council make an informed decision from our advisory recommendation to help guide them in making their decisions. I think with providing just the staff memo, we are missing out on an opportunity to truly advise council. It's just, to me, this is just, it's a skeleton without any meat on the bones. And I think we're failing as a board if we use this format. I think we need to provide context for the majority position and the minority position.
Okay, I just got your message that you could not mute or unmute. Or can you unmute now? You cannot unmute. Let me see.
Okay, I can now. I just got it from the host. I got kicked out. My internet went out. So
Okay.
I think that just happened. So I was also like, there's another option. I mean, I know that you were talking about the one that's in the packet currently. The one that I think Evan was talking about is the one from July, the July meeting packet that includes like the date, it includes the motion, not the full motion text, right? But it also includes what the vote was and who voted each way and who abstained, like who either, you know, like was abstaining or recused. And so there could be a, you know, an in-between in terms of, you know, the Kathy document that's currently there, plus an old memo that they had, if we were looking for, you know, a format that did include, so that people could say, you know, what they voted for, what they didn't, so that there's a little bit more ownership and understanding of that, because I know that that's been something that we've talked about. So, but yeah, I have more things to say, but I'm gonna let you guys decide and talk about it, because I don't vote.
Alana?
So I appreciate what everyone's trying to do right now. But I still firmly believe that if we're going to affirmatively try to go ahead and compel everybody to do the document, it's still going to need its own vote. It's not because we don't vote in favor of the Kathy one, we inherently are all now subjected to this other process that, so I would, if I were you guys, wanting this process, what I would do, which I think would be more efficient and effective, would be to craft the motion with the guardrails on this process that you want and that you think would be best based on the feedback and conversations that we've had on this topic. Because just because it doesn't, Kathy's version doesn't prevail, still is not going to rise to the level of compelling 7 volunteer members on an advisory board to draft a court document.
I agree with Alana's interpretation.
Robin?
Can you say that again, Brian? I'm sorry.
Just repeating what Alana said, I just want to clear this motion, say like, if we want to use the Kathy memo with the amendments, then we should use that and we should stop the discussion of this court style document. If we don't want to proceed with the Kathy memo with the amendments, then we should do something else, which is I think what Alana was clarifying. And I do want to clarify that a no on this motion does not mean that we're committing to doing the court style document. That's another motion to be made, I guess.
Okay.
Or to be revisited. Perhaps we made that in the past, but I just want to maybe get this issue off the table if we're only going to do the staff memo with the motions.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I just have one quick comment. You know, I would say to everyone on this board that if you think about the big picture and the full breadth of our mission, and that there's different people here representing different experiences with cannabis, and we all hold our positions quite strongly. And I would suggest to you that it's undermining to our board to provide incomplete representation of what our conversations and debates have been. That it's actually quite strong for this board to come forward with 250 words on each particular issue that we debated and dug into and had guest speakers come and speak with. It's a very strong thing to present the whole of our conversation attributed so that the council, these are smart people. They can see the attributions, they can make their own calls. But again, putting a 250 word, to my mind, quite reasonable limitation does not take away any advantage from the majority. In fact, it adds legitimacy to the entire argument. I would just urge you to let us come forward with the full picture of our conversations. If you have a very specific problem with something that's been asserted in a minority viewpoint, speak up. Let's do the work, but let's give this council the benefit of our full conversation. Yeah, thanks.
Stacy?
So I appreciate Alana's motion and just like the clarification that, because that was my point earlier, that it felt like we needed to go through that process and make sure we're all agreeing to that and what format to use first. As far as Michael and Robin, your points, as I understand it, our meetings are recorded for anyone to look at whenever they wish. We also have minutes that we all approve every single meeting. So to try and say that, there's no, place that a council member could go and look for more information is factually incorrect. In fact, making a court style document, as far as I'm concerned, especially because we do want to limit the words, 200 words can be 200 rhetorical words full of opinion. 200 words can be succinct and full of science, but to come to a document that we all agree on in that way is an immense task. I would sooner just reference and say, okay, here were the votes, here's the people who voted that way, the way we've been talking, in either the Kathy document or something, similar. And you could even put a link to a video, a recording of the meeting, right? Or the meeting minutes. I mean, they can go and gather information. We sat per meeting and debated every one of these issues in a way that I can't imagine 200 words for any one of us who has more strong opinions about this is going to feel good. So it's not that it's doing a disservice. I think just the opposite, trying to, distill this into 200 words that all of us that are, like Evan said, representing a lot of different stakeholders or not, it's almost an impossible task. We're not a court. So why are we delivering a court style document? We're an advisory board that has spent endless hours debating this, recorded for anyone to see. They could go on there and hear the experts speak. If they're like curious about the indoor air issue, for example, maybe a certain city council member worries more about that. Well, they can go do that due diligence because it's available to them. And so I really disagree. And it actually feels like it undermines all the work we have already done to say that not making this court style document somehow does a disservice, because I couldn't disagree more.
I guess just to clarify though, are you saying that providing council with a succinct summary of a minority viewpoint is less helpful to them than pointing them to a video or minutes of our meetings?
I'm saying what I said, that they have access to that information. And the best way, if a person wants to use an advisory board in an objective way, as far as I can imagine, would be to go access the actual information themselves, read studies, listen to the expert who spoke, listen to our debate if they wish. But most of these issues really don't have a factual, final answer or settled science or something like that can be stated. And so it's just too convoluted, as far as I'm concerned, to distill into 200 words that's going to represent all the stakeholder opinions that do go into it, including our own. And so I just, as much as it would be nice to create that document, it would require an immense amount of effort that I can't imagine is appropriate to ask of any member of this board. And I would worry that even at the end of that process, it still would be the same, set of concerns we're sitting here talking about right now.
Michael?
Stacy, I couldn't agree more or disagree more. You know, I certainly respect your opinion, and I'm not laughing at your opinion, but you know, I really feel like the big question is why? Why did you vote this way? And if we are simply going to say to council, here's the issue, here's how the majority voted, here's how the minority voted. If I were a council member, I would want to know, well, why? What was it that caused you to be persuaded to vote this way or that way? And we are not providing the why for council. And I think that we are fooling ourselves if we think that a council member is going to take the time when every other week they're reading through a 500 to 800 page document to try to brush up on every issue that's affecting the city, to go back and do their own independent research. They depend on us as a board and on staff to make those recommendations to them so that they can make an informed decision, so they don't have to go back and do that deep dive. I agree with you, Stacy, that what I think would be helpful is, I mean, I personally like this memo style or court document, however you want to refer to it, where we lay out, here's the why in a very short paragraph, 250 words, why the majority voted this way, why the minority voted this way, and then provide a link. If you want further information or you want to go do your own research, then go and spend, you know, an hour or 3 hours, whatever you want to do. And we provide those links to council if they're so inclined. But I would be really, really surprised if they're going to do it. And frankly, you know what? Yes, I would expect the majority to do the work. You want to support your position, take a couple of hours and write a 250 word paragraph laying out why you supported that decision.
Alana?
Yeah, I hope we move forward some way soon, because this is getting pretty unsightly. I just want to remind everybody that there's like 20 boards and commissions in the city of Boulder, and the drama around what would happen if we went with the default process is hilarious, actually, because you're insinuating that every other board and commission in the city of Boulder and city council themselves doesn't know better than this particular idea. So just like a minor dose of humility and context, city council came up, there's an entire ordinance governing our existence as a board, how we come together, how we vote, how we record everything, how we submit things to council. So when you say that we're failing them and we're failing ourselves to not take on additional hours outside of this, across just at your behest, nonetheless, it's sounds pretty, I would just caution, like,
political is what
if you want to advise somebody, advise them. Don't just give them a yes or no vote and tell them to vote the way you want them to vote. Tell them why.
Are they, like, if let's say we submit Kathy's document and they really don't get one of our, you know, votes or recommendations, can they ask us for a follow-up document or information about that? Or is that going to be part of this process?
yeah, and the only way to advise as a volunteer board member isn't to pretend that I'm a Supreme Court justice, Michael. I'm glad that you have time to do this, and I'm glad that you want to. We're in different positions.
I think a 250 word paragraph is not asking a lot to support a position.
Oh, is it just one? Is it just one 250 word paragraph?
And it's not that simple, Michael. Like, I could write a 250 word paragraph about my opinion, but that's irrelevant.
Then Stacy, get together with the people in the majority who voted aligned with you and figure it out.
Well,
Like,
let me ask you then.
do the work.
We can't do that. We're not allowed to get together and meet with people, you know, and so we're just
you're insinuating we aren't willing to do the work. This is just such a nasty and
I'm not insinuating, you're
ridiculous
basically
challenge.
saying it. You don't want to take the time
chill.
to do the
All right.
work.
I'm gonna be the board chair for a
Come
moment.
down a little bit.
Evan, 1 second before I see your hand up. There was a vote proposal quite a while ago, and I know this is all prompted by, or this prompting all this discussion, but it seems to be going far afield and we still have a motion on the floor that was seconded. So I would invite those that want to discuss the motion, please comment on the motion. And then let's take it to a vote. Then we, if it passes, well, then we can all go home early. If it fails, then we have further discussion. Evan?
I believe that the motion specifically pertained to whether or not we were going to use the previously distributed structure of motion, yays versus nays, and then references to minutes. I would not support that motion. I believe that is a cop-out. I think we need more than that, but I think we also need something different than what has been created. And I do appreciate that Robin and Michael have put together this document, but I think the emotions are flaring right now because one, we're not making references to anyone's names in this document. We're making generalized statements as though the entire board were making it, or the entire supportive or opposition group in the board were making singular statements. I think I will be as impartial as I possibly can, which is not really impartial. So I'll be honest. It feels like both the support and opposition summaries on each of these motions were written by the same person, or at least written from the same perspective. And I think we need to have some accountability in these documents. If we're going to limit it to 250 words, then somebody make a motion and say we're going to cap it at 250 words. But I can tell you, I would never support that because some of this doesn't deserve 250 words and some of it deserves 2,500. The implications of some of these different recommendations could not be more profoundly different. So to equate every one of these recommendations to be the same thing, to have the same weight with council or the same weight with parents in this town is just wrong. So I think it's dangerous to limit ourselves to 250 words on subjects that will inevitably take up a hell of a lot more time at council level when they're reviewing it than others. I mean, some of this is not very controversial. Some of it's extremely controversial. So I think we need to acknowledge that maybe this is the best structure, but if this is going to be the structure, I would say we need references to scientific works. We need acknowledgement by the individual authors. I mean, what we're talking about with Supreme Court opinions and briefs provided, yes, you have the presiding judge who writes the opinion, and then everybody else co-signs to it. I think to say that each one of these opinions is being collectively agreed to is impossible. I think I don't support Michael's motion, but I also don't support throwing away the court style approach to this. I think there needs to be some more work done on it, but I think it's possible for us to identify who is claiming what opinions and identify what is opinions versus what is settled science. And most of the references in here are to things that are at least controversial, if not well misunderstood. So I don't know that helps too much, but let's acknowledge that the document is written certainly doesn't represent the minority opinion in certain cases or the majority opinion in others. I don't think it's particularly representative of the deliberations that we've been through. So I think with some improvement here, and I mean, Robin said, let's do the work. Robin, I know you and I will end up having a lot of the conversation, but if we want to go back and start talking about what the content is in these recommendations, then or the summaries of the supporting and opposition opinions, then we can go back and do that. There's not a lot of paragraphs in here that I'm not going to have serious pause with. So perhaps we should propose a way to approach this that there can be some written time given to this, and I can do it. And I'm not asking everyone to, but I think that there's this structure. I don't know that it gets a lot better so long as we're making references that can be claimed by the individuals who are making them, and references to research that can defend the positions that are being taken. Right here, this doesn't read like a scientific recommendation. It reads very opinionated. So the structure is okay. It's just the content is not going to be supported by either side very readily.
So, Evan, I'll reserve those comments for the future discussion. Well, everyone will remember them. Stacy, do you have comments about the motion on the floor?
Yeah, I'm wondering, is there any set protocol? Like Alana, it sounded like you said maybe there was some sort of set way guidelines, whether that's statutory or not, that we're supposed to submit this, that advisory boards submit this type of document to council. Is that something that exists? Is there a set protocol or guideline, whether that's statutory or not, that exists? Because then it seems we should be following that for this. And that would remove a lot of the debate over how to submit it, as far as I'm concerned. But if that doesn't exist, then there's a different debate.
Well, we could ask Kristen and or Kathy and or who else is in the room? John and Caitlin. Are there accepted guidelines on how advice from a board is supposed to get to city council?
I'm not aware of any specific guidelines that have been provided, but what we can do is look at what previous advisory boards have provided to city council in the past and use those as examples. But outside of that, I'm not aware of any specific directives from council. And I'm not sure if Kathy's on, but Kathy, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Christian, you're right. There isn't anything set forth by council, and we can pull out some examples. Frankly, I agreed with you all when you decided that the way that I had originally drafted was not the best way, because there are reasons that there was people voting on one side and people voting on the other. So the process that you agreed on last time, when this was all started, I believe it was in September, made sense to me. The reason why staff didn't do this draft is not because staff decided that, but the board did. If you want to give staff direction to take another shot at doing a draft that follows the procedure or the outline, the framework that you have, we can do that. If you want it by a different framework, just let us know what you want. But, after my version, at least my understanding of the discussion of CLAB was that that was not enough, that you wanted to give the reasons for each side's vote, which I think makes sense and will be very helpful to council. But that at that time, CLAB members wanted to draft each side, not have staff do it. If that's changed, we're happy to do what would be helpful.
I'm just going to make one short comment, and then I think I'm going to call for a vote unless there's necessity to change that process. I want to emphasize that we want to make it as easy as possible for city council. As Michael said, they read between 500 to 800 pages per meeting, and they earn $239.40 per meeting, which over a year's period of time adds up to $12,400. They're not getting paid a lot of money to do this. So, the easier we can make it for the city council, who ultimately makes the decisions, I think the better. But I guess I'm suggesting a vote in no of Brian's motion. Evan, is this about the motion? You're mute.
Evan, you're muted.
Everything you're saying is not being heard.
It's $274 more than we make for being here. So
it's true, but you're right about that. I will not argue.
They don't call them public servants because it's a high-paid job.
Yeah, they chose their bed to sleep in.
They did, and if we give them a long, I can tell you as a principal taxpayer in this city, in this industry, if I give them 1,000 pages to read, they better read it. That's their job. As the guy who's funding their $274 a meeting, I can say that I'm not concerned about giving them a long document by any stretch of the imagination. If they want to do their job well, they're going to read the whole document. this is important, and it is something that both defines our city internally amongst each other and in a statewide and national scale. And the recommendations that we make here have ripples, and their job to review everything we provide is unimpeachable. They must do it. It's what they need to do. It's why we voted for them. So I don't feel bad for the city council because they have a lot to read. Welcome to the smartest city in the country. You're on the city council, you're gonna have to do some work.
John, your face came on the screen. It looks like you're ready to take a vote.
Oh, I'm happy to reread the motion that was presented and seconded.
That's a great idea.
Certainly. The motion is to presents to council the contents of the motions themselves with the yay or nay votes, along with the staff memo.
Okay, everybody understand what they're voting for? I'll take that as a yes. All right, John, roll call.
Certainly.
Hold on. Sorry, Tom, I'm not sure what I'm voting for. When we say along with the staff memo, what does that mean? That we're just using the format from Kathy's memo, the 2-page document that's at page 24 and 25 in the PDF?
Yeah. As I understand it, the 2-page.
That was my intention.
Okay, then I know what I'm voting for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, John.
Sure. Member Anderson?
Nay.
Member Christie?
No.
Member Green?
No.
Member Keegan?
No.
Member Kunzman?
No.
Member Malone?
Sorry, can you come back to me?
Certainly. Member Noble?
No.
Okay. Member Malone?
I'll vote in favor of it, thanks.
Thank you. Motion fails 6-1.
Okay, Brian, since you were the motion maker, would you, I'm not asking for a motion.
No, I just want to triangulate on this, so I think it's good to sort of get a sense of the board. So in light of that motion, that we want to do something more than provide the motions, the memo, and the yays and nays. I want to then explore like what we should then do, if not the easy. So we ruled out the easy mode. So we're not going with easy mode. So then we started to have this discussion. So maybe we can bracket this, that like, do we want to proceed with the format that's been played out in Robin's document? This may be the start of a motion, but not a formal motion yet. So I would solicit your input on the strategy about how we want to bracket and proceed with this. Do we don't want to go with the easy mode, we want to do something else, is my sense. So I want to figure out what we want to do instead. And is it to do this kind of court style, is the term that many people have used, sort of recommendation instead.
Can I ask, in the recreation for this week or this month's packet, the opposing or the supporting and opposing for different topics, who wrote the one that wasn't present last month?
Robin circulated a draft last month, and then I took the other side on several issues that she wrote. So I'm probably responsible for something like 30% of the content in this document.
Okay, so as an example, where it talks about concentrates and there's the support and then the oppose, you wrote the oppose. Probably, I'm assuming.
For the concentrates, I wrote so Robin wrote for this issue she was supporting. I support her on that issue, but I tried to sort of give an example of what the other side might say. And I'll just sort of argue that this is not a very strong case. I mean, what will be the case, but it was a first draft.
Okay, and then in support of Evan's statement or position is if city council is going to read all this stuff, they're going to have this stuff, whether we augment it or work on it or not. It's going to be in the information that's available to them. So I'm all for trying to improve upon it. Robin?
Thank you, Tom. I think we're so stuck, and I have a suggestion that I would respectfully submit for your consideration, and that might be that we have the Kathy type memo, and then we have a maybe we limit it to 2-page support for the majority, and then a separate document, but it's included in what is officially given to City Council. That is 2 pages for the minority, and that we don't have to challenge or go back and forth on these things, but we allow the attribution to stand and for the arguments to stand on their own merits and their own references to whatever data, or for instance, much of the document, I reference people who came to us and shared experiences, for instance, or reference some of the things that the people who are concerned about indoor smoke brought to us. You may not hold that view, but it was a part of our deliberations. I do feel like council deserves the fullness of our debate. And so maybe people would be more comfortable with 2 separate documents, but you know, a cover bit by Kathy with the votes, and then the opportunity for 2 pages from each, you know, supporting, opposing, opting in. And how would you all feel about that? I guess I'm not putting forward a motion just yet, but I wondered if we could get some feedback on that idea.
Well, one problem with that, I would say, is that we did not all vote the same way each time. So if you're asking for one
Sorry,
group,
Tom, it would be less of going through each specific motion, I guess. And more of a, you know, overall opinion piece on those, you know, different elements. But again, 2 pages to support or defend your position. And I don't know, I guess I'm wondering, Michael, how do you feel about that? Or
I think that that's a good start. I guess I still have the concern. I think it is an important part on our task to let council know why we voted a particular way on each specific issue. You know, to Evan's point about, you know, sending council a 1,000-page document, while I don't agree with that, I do agree with his comments earlier about the timing. If we need more time to hash this out so that we are able to compile a document that we all feel comfortable with, then let's take the time to do that. But again, I think we will continue to debate this issue and go round and round, because if the intent is that the majority can edit what the minority's position is, and the minority can edit what the majority position is, we will never come to an agreement. We will accomplish nothing. So I think we need to warm up to the idea that however we do this, the majority can say what they want to say about supporting their vote, and the minority should be able to say what they want to say about supporting their vote. You know, another idea that I had was, and I hate to put this on staff, but I think because, you know, I think most of us tend to be emotional about the votes that we cast on these issues. Maybe an alternative would be to have staff do a summary of, on each of the issues, what the majority said and what the minority said. I don't think that that's the best alternative, but it's an alternative that maybe we can have a discussion on.
Stacy?
So that last idea, Michael, that you just said was something that's kind of been in my mind, but I also felt like really guilty suggesting something like that, because I know that would take a lot of work and I would hate to put that on staff to do that. Something else that's floating through my mind, because I do understand what you're saying, and it sounds like we do share a lot of the same feelings, as Evan has also echoed in here as well, but just from our different places. And what if we didn't go with, say, 200 or 250 words, but each one of us made a short summary statement of our opinions on one of, each of these issues in fewer words than that, and then add that to a summary sheet that Kathy, similar to, that one, we could refine that more, of course, puts together. And then it's very clear, okay, and sure, like your staff could organize it where it's like, okay, here was the majority and all the people, and each one has their thought there. And then they could go back to the meetings if they really have more, curiosity. And you could reference in your statement, okay, this, I thought this way because of the guy who came to speak about this or that, right? Whatever it is that was important. And you could always link to it if that would be useful too. And if it's something that, everyone can access. So that was something that I feel like you're saying, Michael, in order for us to put together this format in the way that we were talking about, it's almost an impossible ask, is what I've been saying all along. It just, I don't even understand how it could happen. And so maybe if we break it out further, then we get together as a majority and a minority and write an opinion, because even though I may have voted some ways on certain issues, the other people who voted the same way and I may not share the same reason why, right? And then it becomes a really difficult task of putting that into a distilled way into a document. And it's not that I don't think council should have to read a longer document. I don't think that any one of us really wants to dedicate the time to arguing about this forever. It just feels futile when we could each make a pretty short statement, right? We could decide how many words on our opinion that could be organized in a document by staff. So it's not rhetorical or emotional or whatever other words we want to apply.
Right.
I like the consensus, the tentative consensus that's starting to emerge. I also just wanted to clarify, return back to Evan's earlier point that I share Alana's concerns. I don't think that whatever this document becomes should be homework that we're doing outside of meeting time. We should be using this time to work on this document, is what I said at the outset. So, I mean, we can imagine like pushing out that deadline and spending like if we wanted to follow this kind of format. Now, leave that aside, coming back to this new kind of consensus that if we wanted to have each of the motions and each member of this council had an opportunity, council board, each member of this board had an opportunity to give a rationale for their support or opposition, 150 words, 250 words, I don't know what the right number is. I like that suggestion that came from Stacy and or Michael.
So the 250 words would not be per topic, it would be overall, overarching.
Arguably, it could be for each motion, each member has 250 words to say give a rationale for their yay or nay.
Or fewer words if we decide that 250 is just getting too long. And then it's also an opportunity, as I see it, for people to put as much or as little as they want. Now, some of these issues we, like I think Evan said earlier, we're unanimous on. We don't really need to like write much if it's unanimous. Maybe we can have a quick summary statement of why it was so easy, for us to all agree on something. But this is an opportunity for every one of us in, the board is set up, like Evan said earlier, to represent different groups and make sure there's these voices heard. I just don't see how, whether it's during our meetings at work or, whatever it might be, if we had to schedule another session to work on this, I can't even imagine getting it done in a way that's going to feel good to everybody in the way that we're talking about, trying to, all craft together, the people who were part of the majority, a majority opinion. It's not always consistent. Like, Brian may vote one way, I may vote another, even though we're both in the majority, right? Like for different reasons, I mean. So that doesn't seem like a worthwhile exercise to sit here and try and, put that all together in some succinct way when there's going to be feelings like, well, my voice wasn't heard correctly. So this way, when individually per vote, we have a statement of, why we voted that way, there's no, confusion. And likewise, if council or any member of council wants to reference, maybe they think Evan's opinion is more important on a certain issue, like he said, because he represents a certain stakeholder group. So then they can look, okay, well, here's what Evan is voting. So I just think it allows for more equal representation of our voices in a more accurate way to do it that way.
Brian, your hand is still up, but I'm assuming.
Oh, I just have a follow-up comment. Evan alluded to this before, but I think it's like a really concrete case that's is sort of really a justification for why I want to remain committed to some kind of rationale document. So the concrete case is that we as a board, brought forward and sort of this document in this version sort of makes arguments about sort of air quality, for one example. And then there's another part of this document, another kind of motion where we say we're not going to support or recommend edibles, which are sort of the smoke-free consumption option. And so if I was a city council member, it's like, why are you voting for consumption, but like worried about smoke, but like not voting for like the most safe smoke? Like it's like hard to track all of that. So in that kind of specific case of like, how is it that we're sort of reconciling like no edibles, but yes to having concerns about air quality and HVAC and things like that? I think like there are different reasons for like why we vote in those kinds of ways. And I think council deserves to sort of like have those things teased out and explained versus trying to spend going through minutes. And I don't think that necessarily came through really clearly in minutes. Anyway, I'm in support of this idea that Stacey's continued to elaborate that for each motion, every member has an opportunity to provide, again, just making up a number, 250 words for their yay or nay.
Robin, I would also remind the board that we're approaching 5 o'clock. We can take a break sometime soon.
Thank you, Tom. I just wanted to say that for, as the originator of this document, for all the reasons that Stacey just expressed, for the reasons Brian expressed, I could totally get behind each person offering up their rationale for their vote. We might need to be a little less than 250 words, maybe it's 200 words, just to make things a little bit more succinct, but maybe that's a way out of this.
Well, before we go to break, one alternative to consider, and I know that maybe I should hesitate to even suggest this because some people did not like the attempt to make this like a court, but I mean, the reality is, there's hundreds of courts across the country that do things daily. And what they do, as I understand it, is that they, like if the majority was 5 votes and the minority was 2 votes, the majority decides who writes the rationale for the majority, and that person checks in with the other persons to make sure the other people can weigh in on that. And the same for the minority, that one person would be designated the person to write the minority opinion. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's how it works.
Well, we're not a court, Tom.
We're not a court, but I'm
in no way
trying to find a model. I mean, would you want to write something on everything then?
Yeah, why not? Like you made a vote, you had an opinion. How hard, like Michael and Robin were saying, like, all right, it's going to be a little work. Like I personally, I'd rather do absolutely nothing, but I agree with the statement that doesn't seem, the best way because of what Brian just said, that there's too many areas where it's like someone's going to scratch their head looking at just the summary. So if my concern with this document and format has been, I don't see a way that all of us can feel good about what you're describing, having a majority sit together, minority, or as a big group, however we do it. I just don't see that panning out. We're here arguing for hours over this. And if everyone's willing to put forth, we could decide how many words. If we don't like long, we can go short. Then fine. But it's just a way for council to see, okay, and then it would be broken majority minority, but it would be like, let's say the majority was Michael, Robin, myself, and Brian. Each of our statements would appear next to our names in the document under the heading majority, and then under minority, likewise for those people. And so it's still broken up that way. But as far as I'm concerned, it honors our role as an advisory board more. We're not a court. So we don't need to be having a chief justice, or majority. I'm sorry, I don't know the right court lingo, but you know, we don't need to set it up like that. And it's clearly creating a lot of problems among us if we're still here talking about it at 5 o'clock.
Robin, do you have something crucial to say before we go to break? Because
I
something
just
to think
forgot to
about,
lower my hand. Sorry, Tom.
something to think about during break is, should Kate and Allison get a say? They've had a chance to influence our decisions and influence the discussion. Perhaps they should have just as much opportunity to give their opinions. I would advocate for, but haven't. Something before break?
Yeah, I was just going to add that while I would love to be able to write some of these majority or minority opinions, having not been a part of the conversation, yet having a lot to offer to the subject matter, I'm hesitant to say we need to say, hey, opposition, you have your opportunity to present an opinion, and majority, you can do the same. Some of these, it's going to be hard for us to be able to pull that off. Just reading back through some of these conversations are, they don't make a lot of sense. So I would like to be able to provide an informed opinion and be able to represent the conversations that were had, but I don't think it's entirely possible, especially, and like Michael mentioned this earlier, like, okay, majority versus minority or opposed versus in favor. While my vote is pretty predictable and Robin's vote is pretty predictable, there's a lot of fluidity in the in-between there. So being able to just get into your corners and say that we could make arguments from either side is not going to be easy, especially when the majority of people on this call actually voted in both directions pretty consistently. We were more consistently crossing the middle line than we were in our corners. So we should at least be proud of that.
Michael?
I think, Evan, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but Evan, I think what you said before is important, that your opinion is important on these issues. Now, that's not to say we could add it to the majority or minority, however we set this up, but I do think it is important for you to have an opportunity to also write your number of words, whatever we decide, and say, here's my feedback, but I didn't get to vote because I wasn't yet on the board or whatever.
I guess I think really what I was getting at is that I think I'm going to want to write a little bit for myself on some of these, especially the ones that I didn't have an opportunity to I didn't have an opportunity to participate in the debate. That I think there's some pretty critical things that did not get discussed. So I want to at least have the opportunity to present that to you guys before we stamp this and send it off.
Michael?
Yeah, just also as an option, you can, and I hate to reference back to the court, but I have no problem, whatever we call this document as a court document or whatever, but it's also not unusual for a court to have more than one opinion. So you could do, for example, the majority opinion, and then if you wanted to provide additional comments as an individual, for example, Stacy, because you felt you were not aligned with the thinking on the majority, you could certainly do that. I was hearing some complaints from members of the board about the time commitment to have to do this, but yet we're still talking about 250 to 250 words per issue. Now it's per person as opposed to having one opinion for each issue. It seems to me like that's going to take more time. I have no problem doing that work, but in terms of trying to save time or being efficient, that might also be a way to do this. And I would also would like to get Kathy's opinion on whether or not Evan should be writing an opinion on issues for which he was not a voting member of the board.
I just, from a efficiency standpoint, I can't, for myself, I could very quickly and easily write my summary statement of the way I voted, but then that, I can imagine how much time it's going to take me. I can even predict it. It's completely unpredictable and likely a vast amount of time that's going to be required for me to sit here and talk to the other people who voted the same way as I did and convince each other why enough to distill that to 250 words. Sounds to me horribly inefficient. And
yep, and all I'm saying, Stacy, is that you could have a majority opinion where 3 people agree and you want to add in your own 2 cents, you can certainly do that.
I just don't know the value then of setting it up that way. Why not just have our individual, this is how we voted and why?
Kate?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that if the board is willing to allow, ex officio members to provide an opinion, then I would think that Evans would be provided, or somebody that wasn't able to vote that day. If we decide to let them offer an opinion if they weren't able to be a part of the vote, that could be just like that just needs to be discussed, right? If you weren't there that day and you had an opinion, can you still write an opinion? But it's obviously not the majority and minority, but it would be this other opinion, right? Where the ex officio lives, where the potential Evan lives when he was not a part of the board, and where non-present members, just trying to like get the full scope of the potential that we're talking about.
And I thought you were going to make things easy for us, Kate. Come on. That's a good point, though.
Inclusive. I'm just trying to be inclusive, Tom.
Yes, I know, but it creates additional controversies. Alana?
I just wanted to quickly respond to your comment about the ex officio members. I would really support it. I know that we can't officially count their vote, but as you said that, I was like, oh, I guess we could always just ask them that, either before, like maybe before we vote. It is kind of a weird item, but I'm in support of whatever you're thinking, Tom, in regards to being inclusive with our ex officio members who put in the equal amount of time as us voting members. So that's all. Happy break.
All right, so you got some things to mull over. I'm going to give 10 minutes. So it's 5 o'clock right now, 5:10. Everybody good with that? All right. See you soon.
Thank you.
Kristen, while we're waiting for everybody to rejoin the virtual room, can you hear me? Is that a yes?
Hey, Tom, I'm here. I'm just going to have my video off for a second.
Okay. Kristen, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Were you planning to make sure everybody is accomplishing the Jamboard? And then when we talk about the retreat later?
Yes, I'll put a reminder in for the Jamboard when we get to that agenda item.
Okay. Let's see. Just waiting for Alana for sure. She might just have her camera off, but
Yeah, sorry, I'm here.
okay.
I'm in a cold, lonely office, so I've just been sitting here.
Well, Kate, augmenting my suggestion creates some additional thinking, which makes it interesting. It's not that, I mean, Evan should be able to express his opinions. Oh, Evan, are you in the room? Sorry, you're down in the bottom corner on my screen, so I didn't see that. All right, maybe we wait another minute or so, although we have quorum, but Let's wait one more minute. Did anybody have any difficulties oh, there you are. Anybody have any difficulties getting in and seeing the Jamboard?
Kristen, I believe that Jamboard was actually shared with the same account that I was letting you know about earlier. That's the wrong email address. If you could share that Jamboard with the renewable.evan email, I'll make sure I get on there.
Okay, and is it John right now that will be able to do that, or who do we ask? Kristen? Who?
You can certainly make notes and we'll get it taken care of. So thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, we'll have to, it was another individual that set that up for us, Evan, so it's not something I can do immediately right now, but I'll definitely send them an email and get you access as soon as possible.
No worries. Thank you very much.
So that creates another interesting issue, Kate, and that should people who are no longer on the board be able to contribute, especially if they were there for the vote, or even if they weren't.
Boards are considered the makeup that they exist at the time they take action. So the memo should be by the people that are here now. With respect to your question about Evan making comments, he is on the board now. And to remind you that the votes were taken at the time are not set in stone. I mean, in some ways I hate to say this because you could open up everything if you wanted to. So, to the extent that you want nuances in any of your decisions or clarification or whatever on previous votes that are taken, a board is dynamic. It's not like things are set in stone once you vote. I mean, obviously, when things start happening as a result of it, changing your votes after a recommendation is sent to the city council doesn't really do much good. But up until the time the recommendation is sent, it's the board's decision about what to do, and that includes new motions.
Thank you for that reminder.
I appreciate that, Kathy. I will limit my new motions and rekindling of old conversations to what I promised to be a very small handful of specific subjects I think need to be reconsidered.
Okay, so we do have other items of business later, but this conversation is ongoing. The flavor of the room, I think before break, was that each person was going to have the opportunity to write their own comments on each issue. I'm assuming if some people pretty much ended up writing the same comment, they could group together, or they could say what he said or what she said. Brian?
Yeah, I started going down this path, this line of reasoning that you're starting to go down over the break as well, that like maybe we like assign people to each thing to like write the lead opinion, and other people can, like, as Michael's kind of alluding to, can like co-sign it or sort of like have their own sort of concurring opinion. Because I am mindful of Alana's concerns is a very legitimate one, that like, asking if there are, I don't know, make up a number 10 different motions here, asking each person to write, up to 250 words is a lot. I don't think everyone should have to write 250 words. It might be enough to say that you see what someone else writes and say, I concur with X, might be sufficient. So I started to go down this sort of line of thinking like, oh, we should assign people to motions, like be their lead writer and things like that. But that might just be too much work. I spent about 2 hours writing these, and so it's not a non-trivial amount of time, but I would definitely. So yeah, I'll just stop talking. I'm not sure what I'm saying anymore.
I'm trying to protect the overachievers in the crowd, whoever they might be, that feel they have to write on every single issue, whether it be 10 or maybe even 20. I mean, it seems like for those that were concerned about the time frame, it seems like banding together when one had similar thoughts with another individual or individuals. Seems like
Or
a lot.
14.
14. I knew it wasn't 10. Does that include time? Our time decisions and are the most recent decisions? Michael?
Yeah, I mean, to Brian's point, it seems to me like we should just allow each individual board member, if they wish to add something to what's already been written, or if there is a consensus, they can just say, you know, Michael Christie concurs, or, you know, I concur and here's why, or I dissent and here's why. But I think that should be left up to the individual.
Yeah, Robin?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the time we've been sitting here debating the document, if we had more substantive written words, we could work through something. So you know, in the time we've been talking it through, just to have more on the page would be helpful.
Brian?
So again, I think just to Robin's point right there, also Alana's concerns, you know, would it be possible for us to use the December meeting and maybe even like a portion of the remainder of this meeting, the last 25 minutes we've allotted, to try to get into this document? Again, my main concern leaving tonight's meeting is that people don't have access to the document, or they don't know how to use it, or they're doing something wrong. I know that again, Kristen put a lot of thought to like how this was set up, so it sort of satisfied all these kinds of requirements. So I want to make sure that everyone has access, they can get in here, they can make changes. And so my suggestion going forward is that we make a motion to formalize that we want to do this kind of individual opinion model per motion. And then following that motion, if it passes, to then make sure that everyone can get in the document and actually edit this in a way that we are all building on top of each other's work.
Kate?
I'm just processing what Brian said now. So hold on, I'm gonna take a minute.
Stacy?
Likewise. So I'm trying to understand if I am seeing this correctly. You, Robin, Michael, I would be willing to, though I haven't formally contributed text, are cool because you've either already done a lot of it or are willing to do more. And so I guess I'm looking at all of us here, and it feels like there aren't that many people that, and I think, Alana, am I wrong by saying that you'd be willing to also contribute, but you're not comfortable with the document the way it stands for your own reasons, like the way the format, but maybe if you had this more individual approach, that would be better for you somehow? Or I want to be more clear how you feel too, because it seems like we're close here, like to all agreeing that this meets our needs, but I just want maybe to hear from the people who haven't already written text, because like Robin and Michael, if you guys have taken all this time already, then you already know what it would take to maybe add a few more sentences of less words on some of these topics. So we're not even that far from everyone offering their opinions. And I'm still just stumped. And over the break, that was what kept striking me, was like, well, what if we just say 100 words, right? I mean, that's really like, when I fill out contact forms online, I struggle to get it down to 100 words. So that's like really short, right? 200 words really isn't long. Like that might be hard too, but if you don't have much to add on a topic, you can just say, I don't really have much to add, but like, I still am struggling to understand why we're trying to like group together and author this as like a joint document. That feels really hard to me. And it feels like in doing so, we're also leaving out what I think Kathy said, should be an opinion we at least consider at this time. So I guess I'm struggling to understand why not just all write something, like, why are we really trying to make this like collusion between us? I don't get it.
To respond, just reply that I didn't mean to intend or to convey that like we're all trying to author opinions together anymore. I just say that if someone said it better than you could ever say, you could always just concur with them and say nothing more. Concretely, I just want to make sure that everyone can get in the document. It's sort of my overarching goal. What I said from the outset, 2 hours in, I don't think we've made any progress on that. I think the most important thing that we do leaving this meeting is making sure that everyone can open the document. They know how to like check the reviewing box and that they can make a change or make a comment. And if everyone can do that, I would be thrilled to close out the meeting on that.
I couldn't at first, but I emailed staff and was very graciously helped. So I'm in.
Michael?
Yes. So Stacy, to your point, my understanding was we were trying to do it sort of majority, minority, just in terms of trying to reduce what we were actually presenting to council, which is why we had a word limit on it. I agree, Brian, you made the comment that, you just want to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to get into the document. I appreciate not only getting into the document, but I want to make sure if you feel so inclined to express your opinion and your voice, that you should have the opportunity to do that. If you're not so inclined and you just feel that whatever the paragraph is that is aligned with your position on a particular issue, you can simply write, I concur, or here's one sentence as to why I was thinking differently on this issue, but I supported this issue. As long as we can each have a voice, I think that's all that matters.
I think everyone needs to say something, right? Like whether it is, I feel the same as Michael and Robin, and I don't have anything else to add, fine. But I think every member should have their opinion represented. If they don't have one beyond their vote, they can just say that. I don't have anything to add beyond my vote. I just think writing it from the perspective of some sort of grouping that represents all of the majority, I don't see how that's going to work in this. This is a really weird topic, right? Like we can all agree on that. Like as Evan pointed out, there's a lot of this like convoluted voting beyond those of us who are more clearly, polarized. So I'm personally still struggling to see how I'm going to figure that out. And I don't think it doesn't represent the board the way I see the board intended, like our intended purpose, to have a statement that suggests, a grouping where majority makes this statement. And then if I want to add something, I can. Then it's like emphasizing my voice or anyone else who does that. Whereas if it's just really pragmatically like listed out, like Michael, Stacy, right, Brian, like we go forward. If that is nothing to add, fine. But I don't like the idea of having this like summary that we've agreed to somehow tacitly or not. It doesn't feel right to me. And it doesn't feel like it really, like the way we're set up, if you think how this board is actually supposed to be structured, is to have all these voices represented equally. And so we should present our document that way. That's how I see it. It's not like, Michael and Robin's voice should be always represented together. If you have the same opinion, great, then just say that.
Right. So if you go to the document, I've gone through and started making suggestions that for the things that I wrote, I don't think anyone's edited since. I'm writing Brian for the majority, and for the things that I think Robin wrote, I'm changing them to like Robin for the minority. As far as I know, we're the only two ones in this document. But that might just illustrate what we're trying to do here. Stacey, to your point, I think we're just trying to like lower the overhead, that if you have nothing to add, you can just sign on to someone else's statement. But there's not this kind of forced consensus kind of process that we started off with. So I think it's just that like, if you don't have the time or bandwidth or interest in that particular topic, you can just sign on to someone else's opinion. You're muted.
Like, can per item, we just list all of our names and our role, like, ex officio member, right? Like that way, if at part of this document, in whatever way, I'm not making any suggestions, we wanted to include those voices too, we could, and it would just be a way, like, the board's designed to have ex officio members. Obviously, their opinions are valued. They wouldn't be here otherwise. And so we should have that represented too, if they wish to share an opinion, even though they didn't vote. And that's, as I see this document, being like equal representation. If you don't have anything to add, fine. You could literally, there could be a word like deferred, or I don't know, whatever word, if you don't want to say anything. And I just don't see why we need to like start crafting other styles. Like that to me is like super straightforward, and every motion, it's just listed out per member.
So I've just gone at the document. I'm like, just wrote like Brian for the majority, Robin for the minority, Kate as ex officio, and like Evan as, late joiner. We'll come up with a better name or something.
So I just went into the document, Brian, and I see the edits that you made, but I'm having trouble figuring out, and I see Kate's comment, but I cannot figure out how to, I'm in the readability mode. I don't know how to get out of the readability mode.
Would it be helpful for Brian to share his screen so everybody could see that same thing, or somebody?
Maybe.
I don't know if it's Brian or Kristen is the proper one, and maybe that will help everybody be able to use it.
I think that sounds like a great idea.
And can I throw out one more question as Brian starts to share his screen? So I was able to get, I can click on the link and then I get this Microsoft login thing, and then it wants to send me a code, but no code ever comes through. Did anybody else have that happen?
It go to my spam as well. So check your spam folder.
It's in the spam folder. I just fought that for the last 3 hours. So.
Okay.
Oh.
See it now on mine. I could see your edits, and that looks great. Like, but like we'll add everyone's name, I assume, right?
Right. So I'll just do for an example, like Stacy.
Well,
for the majority.
Can you share screen? Is that allowed?
Yes.
Kathy? Okay.
Do you want me to do that? Do you want to do that, Kristen?
Yeah, or who you ever think is the best person.
Either one's fine with me.
All right, I'll try to share screen. Choose the right window.
And I mean, I don't know that we really have to keep the for the minority or for the majority, because again, that's implies too much. I think it could just be Robin's opinion, and then let's pretend Evan agrees. He can just say, agree with Robin's opinion if he doesn't want to add anything or something like that. I just, because again, that's, to me, it's politicizing it. It's like trying to like convince the reader that there's more support for an issue than there might be, or support in a different way. And I just don't see that should be the intent of this document.
Well, for another viewpoint, normally what happens is when a board acts by voting, that people support the vote, even if they don't agree with it. Or in a case like this, you agree to have 2 opinions. If you want to have 3 to 7 opinions or 9 opinions, you can do that. But it is very common to have a consensus and have 1 or 2 opinions, and people sign up to agree to it rather than everybody listing their own way to put the same thing.
Totally agree. But what I've been hearing, and I definitely would fall into this, but it sounds like a lot of people have similar concerns for just different reasons with this document that we've been working on creating in that style that you're saying, right? Like the original idea is like, yeah, just keep it straightforward recommendations. Nobody liked that. We all voted against it. Okay, fine. So then here we are trying to say majority minority, but we've been really struggling to find a way. Everyone has issues with that for different, or so many of us have issues with that for different reasons. And so then
well, one problem is that everybody's being really global and not specific. So I think somebody suggested going through the comments and seeing which ones people really did agree with or disagree with. I think you might handle some of the comments very differently than others, but right now all the discussion has been I disagree with everything or I agree with everything, which isn't getting you very far in your discussion tonight.
Could we do it like as a mix where the document could, like, there's some issues that it doesn't sound like there's any real need to write much of an opinion on. It kind of speaks for itself. And so could you do a mix of the ones that really do have so many different stakeholders that are trying to be represented here? Can we separate it that way more rather than majority and minority, even though it's not traditionally done? This is a really non-traditional subject matter. And I think it's important that council understands that there's a lot of viewpoints, but they're all viewpoints, or mostly all viewpoints with a few exceptions, not, real solid science fact. And so I guess this topic does feel like it needs maybe a different model, like, just unless I'm wrong and everyone's like, yeah, we could easily agree with the way it's written right now, but I haven't heard anyone say that. We've been here.
Just to answer that question, Stacy, anyone can write whatever. They can say, it could be Stacy Green commenting for herself only, or commenting for, on this topic. But Kate, you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah, I just think that we started this piecemeal approach of deciding how we wanted to go about this with the format, and then suddenly we got away from that. And I know that we're trying to adjust it with different people's names, but I feel like, why don't we go back to that piecemeal approach of okay, now we have the format. Now, do we want opinions to be added or not? Right? Like, that hasn't been a question that's been asked. Like, just because Kathy's memo was not the deciding one that people wanted, I just think that there's other questions that we're working off of this document because it exists, not because everybody agrees that this is the right format. We still haven't agreed on that. And I'm not trying to go back in time and make this harder. I just feel like we're starting to work on a document that we haven't, and I know that we're trying to do something and move forward, and this is all we have, but I just feel like it makes it really hard when I, as somebody who's trying to be more diplomatic in some ways, is that I don't feel like we're starting from the same point, right? I just feel like we were going towards this, what's the format? But all we did was say, not this. We didn't say this is the format we're going to use, and now we're going to change it. And so it just feels, for me, like I'm struggling with how to interact with this conversation, because I don't feel like y'all have decided how it's supposed to look. And right now we're adding people's names. Did everybody agree that we think that should be everybody, or 2 or 3 opinions, or I just think that if we're going to go about it in a logical and in a very one thing at a time, or one topic, the format gets decided, and then this, and then we talk about, okay, well, is it all, or is it 3 to 4 opinions? Are we going to include state law, or are we not? Are we just going to do the recommendations first? Robin recommended earlier, we do the recommendations and then these are appendices. I just feel like we're back to the document, and I understand that that's what we have, but I feel like we skipped a step when we were already talking about. I'm just trying to follow the conversation, figure out, because we're doing this and we're putting effort into making this document better. Why don't we start from scratch? And that these things can be added into them. But if there's a different way I just think that is working on this document hard because of this document, and we should just start with a new format and a new structure. I also want to say, and this is to side point, I do think that there should be, whatever we decide today for this document or a new document, I would recommend that, yeah, to Brian's point, we spend an hour at the December meeting just writing whatever we want to do and editing whatever we want to do in the meeting. And an hour of that meeting, the time that we have reserved, we are doing some work in that. And maybe that saves some time. And maybe people can do it before if they have the time and they hope that they do. But if not, we reserve some time. Instead of having a 3-hour meeting with us just talking about whether or not we want to document and what we want it to look like, we can actually, everybody's been talking about, let's do the work, but give some time to do that in the meeting. So those are my two comments.
Alana?
Yeah, I mean, this document, as it is taking over the entire agenda of today and potentially the future, I still think we still have to get through the motion to figure out how we're going to do this. And I just want to remind everybody that there's still a significant agenda left for tonight. So that's all.
I was just remembering that, Alana. And I hear and agree with you. Michael?
Kate, I thought that we were making progress, but based on your comments, I guess we're not. But more to Stacy's point about saying you're in the minority or in the majority, can't we just leave it up to the individual member as to what, if they want to make a comment, they can make a comment and they can say in the minority or in the majority. And I assume, well, I don't want to assume, but my hope would be that for each issue, for example, Brian, down below, it says passed 4-3. Council will know whether you're in the majority or in the minority, because we're going to list out again, my hope is that we would list out individual names. I guess to me, it's semantics, whether you say you're in the minority or in the majority, but if you don't wish to say that, you don't have to say that.
I just want to comment. There is progress being made. I just don't want it to end up where we come to the December meeting and people don't like this document again. And so that's my concern, is that, like, have we gotten past that part of it to know that this is what we're actually doing? And when I also saw this happening, I thought we were going to do, here's the motion, here's the majority, here are the names of the majority that voted that way, here are the minority, here are the voters, and then they can list. They don't have to put, because I'm a majority member, I mean, they voted that way. So they can put in what their comments were, and they don't have to say Kate for the minority or Kate for the majority. They just say Kate, and I voted this way, and that's fact. And then we have, the minority as a header, and then you have those people listed underneath, and they list their things, and then you have other opinions, and I can list mine, Allison can list hers, and Evan can list his, if we're going about it in this, every single person. Also, if somebody says, I agree with Brian and I don't need to say anything else, that doesn't have to be the final thing that we submit to City Council. So, I mean, this is part of the process, but I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, our time is running out on this topic. Brian? Do you have a?
Yep, sorry, I was figuring out how to unmute myself with screen share. Should know better. So Kate's points are extremely well taken. I think that we still need to sort of commit to like doing it in this kind of format. My hope was just to illustrate like how it could be done so that we would have something to think with versus talking in the abstract about court cases and being a court or not being a court, which has brought up some strong feelings. So I agree with Kate. I think we should commit to sort of like pursuing a document. If we do want to pursue this kind of document, we should commit to that, have a motion to that effect. And if there's another suggestion of how this can be structured, maybe we leave that to the next meeting. But I think that if we wanted to so a rough draft of a motion, not ready for a second yet, would be for every motion that passed, every single member, including ex officio members, including late joiners, like Evan, have an opportunity to write a statement articulating their support or opposition or indifference to the motion.
Evan, before we go on to you, I just want to note that Robin, you still have no access to the document?
No, everybody explained it to me, Tom. I think I know how to get to it.
Okay, I have a feeling that my access is through my Gmail, which means I won't be able to edit.
My access is through Gmail too. I think we'll be able to edit. I just have to try to figure out where, this is going to sound so dumb, but where my junk folder is and try to find the Microsoft.
Well, it's just that my
And
access.
it'll typically ask you if you want to request permission to.
And I was able to use my company email. It doesn't have to be Gmail, and then it gets you that code to whatever email you enter. So use any email.
Well, it's just that I have access to Microsoft Word through the university, not through Gmail.
This is hosted by the city, so it doesn't matter which email it's on.
Really? I can't get into the way you see it on your screen. I can only get into viewable, but Evan.
Yeah, what I was going to add is that I think I kind of wanted to further Brian's effort at formulating what this motion would be. I believe that we can somehow come to a motion that kind of acknowledges this format, but says there will be an opinion in the affirmative and an opinion to the negative, and any member or whatever the additional definitions we want to use for members like me who didn't get a chance to vote have an opportunity to provide a signing statement and say, I mean, that's what the courts call it. If you want to have a differing opinion from your vote, then from the vote you made, then you add a signing statement, or you just sign on to the majority or minority opinion. In either situation, every person has an opportunity if they choose to. If not, they can just co-sign to the vote that they made and the explanation that was given by the member who's writing that opinion. I think we're getting closer. I think it's an opposition versus approval, and everyone has a chance to write a signing statement to add or detract from the side they voted on. I mean, that's a relatively simple approach to this. I think more simple than everyone writing their own opinion, that's certain.
Okay. Do we want to come to any conclusion before we move on to another topic?
Do people want to formally make a motion and commit to this, or do we need more discussion?
It seems that I don't think the old phrase, throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is a stupid phrase, but I don't think we should throw the baby out. Because if everyone's able to craft their own edition, just highlight, if they have that option, then I'm all for keeping this format. Evan, you still have your hand up, but. Robin?
All right, Brian, did you say that you were putting forward a motion, or?
No, he asked if
Motions can take a while with this board, so I'm mindful of the
Yeah.
time, but if I'm also mindful of like wanting to come to a consensus and a commitment to like sort of pursue this or not. So we can leave this open. We can revisit this. I do like the idea of like actually spending an hour working on this, so we don't have homework we have to take back with us. I'm mindful of that as well. I would appreciate having that closure and commitment that we want to pursue like this kind of format for all the reasons that Kate and others have articulated.
I also would. I mean, I don't think we want to come into the next meeting with these same questions, right?
Yeah.
I don't.
And we may not need as much time for some of the other issues, but we can't discuss this forever. Is there anybody who's prepared to make a motion? We'll help you craft it, whoever it is.
I mean,
Brian?
I'll defer to Lana first.
I mean, was there any interest from anybody in letting staff draft this, and we would be able to edit it through our standard board format and process, like in between meetings, and we're editing something that wasn't from a charged, different member. I heard a couple people kind of piggyback on that, so I wanted to make sure it wasn't still an option, because I'm just really struggling with end of year bandwidth and figuring out how I can be the contributor that I've been and am, but during I can't tell you how tough this time of year is across the household and the business. It's just like,
I just think staff is going to have a hard time capturing both points of view. And one point of view is going to feel like, well, that didn't really capture my point of view.
Well, just like to try and make things a little more simple, I think somebody had mentioned early in this meeting that that is like a soft deadline. Technically, we can move it if we all agree to move it. And I mean, I totally hear what Alana is saying, and I personally couldn't agree more. I mean, it's a real tough time of year because I want to dedicate and show up for that project the way it deserves. And to be asked to do that over, the holidays in particular, while a lot of us, if not all of us, are also balancing other aspects of life as normal, that's a lot. It may not get the energy that it deserves. So, perhaps we do consider, not trying to push this through at a time of year where some of the members might be challenged by that more than others, or everyone the same.
Kathy?
And just to follow up on Alana's thing, I'm happy to do it if it would be helpful. Sometimes it is a lot easier to change words that are, we may not get it at all, which we want, but sometimes it's easier to change what's there than to draft new, or seeing something there gives you ideas for what's new. So if it's helpful for me to take a shot at something for you guys to work from or add to this or whatever, I'm happy to do that. I am going through and adding the votes because that has been one thing that's been brought up several times. I'm sorry, adding the people for each of the votes.
So just a comment about, response to Alana and Kathy's statements there. I do think, just from trying to be as objective as possible, I do think that it would be very different if we started from a document that was put out by the staff, and then we could make comments to that. And the only reason why is that I feel like, based on what I'm hearing, there's a lot of, I don't know, I think that this document is, I know, Robin, how much time and effort it goes to put into something like this, and I really appreciate that you did it. I do think that there's sometimes a reason why Allison and I did it, because we aren't voting members, and I think that that feels a little more objective, and so people can get down with that. When it's from one member, I think that the document was charged before, like it inevitably is, and I think that that's hard for people to digest. And so I do think that if starting with a document from the staff and then we edit that, you've already done the work, so it's really just, it would be you adding context to whatever staff wrote. I do want to just acknowledge that, like, it is a lot of work that you put into it, and I don't want that to go unnoticed. You as well, Brian. I want to say that. And I do think that you're ahead of the game, because no matter what we do from here on out, you've already put in that effort, and that will be used in whatever format we moving forward. But I do think that the board should consider, if we're struggling with this document, then maybe we do ask staff to draft something different.
Robin?
Thanks so much for that, Kate. I appreciate it. And, I guess I would say I have no problem considering a staff authored document. None whatsoever. I'm really happy to look at that. I'm sorry this document feels charged. I want everyone to understand that we all hold positions, strong positions, based on our experience, and we've all experienced legal marijuana in this community differently, and it's okay, and we can stand on where our positions are. There are not lies in this document, but here or there, if we go forward with a staff authored document, I'm really happy to look at that and have the debate about if that's representative of what our conversations and deliberations have been. I think we owe it to the council to give the full picture of our conversations, and I'm open to looking at a staff authored document.
Brian? Oh, Brian, you took your hand, wait, you're mute.
Thank you, sorry. I'll be the contrarian and say that I don't think that a staff authored document would be a productive path forward for all the reasons that I think that we were all struggling with the sort of majority versus minority approach, that I think that we're going to want to get in and sort of needle around in the other side's statements that like, is this an accurate reflection? We want to like add our own, like, and it's gonna, I think it's like Stacey mentioned, like it feels like it's a big ask for staff to kind of go through, try to summarize all these things, which is maybe not a reason to oppose it, but that I just think that we're just getting back to a situation where we're still have a majority, we have a minority, and it's going to inaccurately capture sort of the reason why we did this. And so I think that the best and most efficient use of our time going forward is again these individually authored opinions versus trying to edit by committee like these majority minority statements.
Michael, before I go to you, I had the same thought, Brian, that people will, not like the way something's written and on each opinion or on each thing. And this is going to set us back further. Michael?
Tom, I agree with you, and Brian, I agree with you. I feel like, as much faith as I have in staff, I don't think that any of us will be satisfied that our positions are represented the way that they should be. I think that staff would probably take a more diplomatic approach and try to water down, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful or negative way, but the reality is this is a charged document. These are arguments on both sides, and the arguments should be made, and let council decide based on the arguments that are presented to both sides, from both sides. Let council decide what they're going to do. I think that we're not being honest with ourselves if we're trying to kid ourselves that this is not a charged document. This is an emotional issue. The votes are all, for a lot of part are emotional. And I think that on both sides, we could all argue that our emotions are supported by the facts as we see them and as we believe them. So I agree with you, Brian and Tom. I don't think that relying on staff to accurately capture the intent and the emotion behind all of our votes is going to do us justice. And I'm concerned that we will wind up in the same place we are tonight, debating whether or not staff accurately got it right. And maybe those in the majority would say, well, staff got it right on the minority side because it's sort of watered down in their opinion. And so they like that. And maybe those in the minority would say they got it right on the majority side, but the majority is not going to agree because it doesn't have what the majority wanted in it. I think we need to stick to the format that is, at least as a skeleton, that is before the board. And if you want to provide an individual comment, then you should provide an individual comment.
Stacey, are you going to make a motion?
I'm really bad at that kind of thing. That's why I never do it. It causes a lot of anxiety.
I was just counting on you.
Somebody else who's more eloquent with those types of things should do that. But it sounds like we're really close in that this is, I agree with Michael exactly how he just said it. And that's what I was trying to say earlier, but on the version of us trying to come together and write the equivalent of what we're saying staff should. Same idea. It sounds really hard and like just too much confounding factors. So I agree why it makes a lot of sense to do it the way, as far as using this document, we could clean it up quickly, I think, so it doesn't feel like this is the original document from Robin, because it's simply going to be anything Robin wrote that fits into her word requirement, she can have here with her name on it. And that's it. If other people want to add opinions, they can. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So somebody who is good with words should make a motion.
Evan? Oh, you're mute.
I was not going to make a motion, but you said that right at the end, so I apologize if you thought I was. What I was going to say is that I now just have gained access to the editable version of this document. Obviously, I agree that there needs to be a little bit more spectrum of opinion expressed in here, and I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of emotion about this document because it does feel that it's expressing one side more succinctly than the other. And I don't want to make an official motion against this, but I'm going to say that I'm going to express my opinion as Evan. And I think if we have some counter arguments to some of the stuff that's being summarized in this document, we may have an opportunity to be able to kind of, I hate to call it tribalize this, but I think if there's some stuff for the more affirmative legalization side to sign on to, this conversation may be a little more efficient next time we attempt to have it. What I will say is I would like to make a motion that at the very least we push back our targeted date for submission to the city council by a minimum of 1 month. I think the reality of the holiday season is set in now, and where we hoped to be today, 2 months ago, has not been achieved. So I think it's appropriate for me to make a motion to push back our deliverable date to city council 1 month for the recommendation document to, I believe, approval in our March meeting.
So Kathy, if there's one motion on the floor that has not been seconded yet, can another motion be made?
Yeah, if you, yes, because that it dies for lack of a second. So it's dead for lack of a second.
Well, I haven't given it a chance to be seconded yet, but I mean, Brian, did you have a motion that you wanted to make before that motion?
I will second Evan's motion so we can push this back by a month, address the real concerns that we have around timing, and that we can actually dive in and work hard on this.
Okay.
And then I can follow up with an motion for the document once that passes or whatever happens to.
Okay, Kristen, you have your hand up.
I just want to clarify the current timeline that we're on right now. So previously the board voted to have a final version completed for January, a public hearing on that version in February, and a presentation to City Council in March. So if we're pushing it back 1 month, that may be February instead of March. I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, my intent was that we vote internally in February and provide our recommendations, or whenever we have to do the public hearing, we do that in March instead of February.
Okay, any further discussion, or we're running out of time, so I'm going to call a vote unless somebody really needs to comment on that motion. John, are you still there?
Certainly, I couldn't get my mouse working. Sorry about that. Yes, so I do have the current version of the motion proposed by Member Anderson to push back the document approval to the March 2023 meeting. And I have that seconded by Member Keegan. And for a vote, Member Anderson?
Need to clarify something in reference to what Kristen just said. I believe our original motion was to make our approvals within this board to then announce the public hearing for February. I believe the timeline that you just detailed, John, would actually push it back 2 months instead of what I've intended, which is a single month.
Certainly. Kristen, could you repeat that timeline that you mentioned a moment ago so I can put it in the verbiage for the motion?
Sure. So I think what Evan's proposing is to have a final version in February, the public hearing on that version in March, and the presentation to City Council in April.
Yes, that is my intent.
Wonderful, thank you. So I have added that verbiage to the motion, and thank you for that clarification. With that said, Member Anderson, for your vote.
Aye.
Member Christie,
Support the motion.
Member Green,
Support it.
Member Keegan,
Support.
Member Kunzman,
I'm gonna vote no, because I think we could have done it, but that's my vote.
Member Malone,
I'm in favor of it.
and Member Noble.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Motion passes.
Okay. Before we need to move on to another topic, Brian.
Folks ready for a motion? All right, I would motion that we proceed with a model where for each motion that's been passed by this board, that every current voting member and ex officio member be allowed to write a up to 200 word statement justifying their vote. And I would welcome friendly amendments.
I would second the motion.
Did that include a way to get Evan some sort of line item on this in the way you're wording it? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, as a current voting member, he would be able to leave a statement, I think, for every single one of these issues, even if he didn't vote. And we would just indicate that under separate section.
Evan?
Not to complicate, but I have a little bit of an issue with the way that was phrased, Brian. In the case that there is a large group of individuals, call it 3 to 4, who agree entirely, I don't think we should be limited to offering 200-word summaries from each individual in the way that public comments can be pooled. I would suggest that we allow, if 3 or 4 or 5 of us want to have a common opinion, I believe we should yield the space to be able to have combined opinions that multiple people are signing their name to. I think it would be, if some people don't want to make a comment, cool, then you give your 200 words to the person who has a lot to say about it. Because I think some of these deserve a lot more than, I certainly know I'm going to be very, very, very hard pressed to summarize my opinions on some of these in 200 words.
I would say that each statement can't have more than 200 words per signatory then.
There you go. I like that. I can fully support that.
Okay.
Each statement, yeah. So a statement could have multiple signatories. Sorry if this is like getting too much in the weeds, but the intent being that people could sign multiple statements. A statement could have multiple signatories and their budget would be pooled.
Okay.
I was just gonna, I don't know if the motion needs it, but at the end of it, you said vote. And I was just wondering if we changed, or you might want to change it to perspective, just because it's gonna be, if it's including like Evans or myself or Allison.
An opinion.
Sure, opinion. Thank you.
Yeah. To further complicate that one, signatories equal voters. Ex officio members have not voted on any of these subjects. How do we want to account for their allotment of words? And myself have not voted on several of these. So
I would say start with 200 words. If you find a friend who wants to give you their 200 words, you can take their 200 words.
Phone a friend.
So I would say let's everyone start with 200 words. If it's not enough, we can address it in the next meeting. If you really want to kind of move this motion forward and get to other business. Evan raises really good points. I think those details can certainly be worked out in a future meeting.
All right, Kate. Are you, oh, Kate, you withdrew? Okay. Evan, your hand is still up.
no.
So is the motion then everyone gets 200 words? We're not worrying about this, like I get his borrowing someone else's words right now, like we're just straightforward for now, agreeing 200 words per person, and we could always work on that later. Is that, am I understanding that?
My intent is that everyone gets 200 words, and that if you don't want to use your 200 words, you can give that to somebody else. And those details we can work out in the future, I guess.
It just that I'm starting to wonder, is that gonna leave room for like, I don't know, like more confusion than we need? Like the borrowing words or giving your words, like, I don't know. I just think that's starting to really unnecessarily complicate this again. And it felt like we were like really.
I agree.
He didn't say that. That just complicates things.
Yeah, but it does. And it doesn't feel necessary. Like it felt like the motion was pretty clear in that part anyway. I don't
Sure, I
necessarily
should be
agree we
finished
need to
about
start
7.
nothing with.
So if you want to,
We're getting a little.
All right.
We're trying not to be beyond time here.
So let me try this one last time. I'll respectfully decline Evan's friendly amendment. Would welcome one in the future, maybe in the December meeting, if we have time to think about how we want to allocate these word budgets, but let's just stick to 200 words a person.
Okay. Ready to vote?
Can we reread, please?
yes, I was going to say thank you, Member Keegan. If you could please state your motion for the record one more time, please.
The recommendations to council should include each motion, and each current member and ex officio member will have a 200-word budget to provide their perspective on the motion.
Thank you very much.
All right, go ahead, John.
Thank you. And for voting, Member Anderson?
Does he need a second, or who seconded it?
Oh, it was seconded
Member
by-
Noble seconded.
Okay, I missed that, sorry.
Some time ago.
Evan, you're on mute.
I'm going to vote no.
Member Christie?
I support the motion.
Member Green?
I support it.
Member Keegan?
Support the motion.
Member Kunzman?
Support.
Member Malone?
I don't support.
And Member Noble?
Support the motion.
Let me see. Motion passes.
Is there something that would have made it more palatable to the two of you who voted against?
Since the beginning of this conversation, like 4 meetings ago, I've been about as few words as possible. So it's just sending 1,800 words per motion to council sounds crazy. Sorry to use another bad word. I shouldn't have said it sounds crazy. It sounds bananas.
Now
The opposite.
Okay, that's good to know.
I think that. Yeah, sorry, Alana. I think that some of this deserves a lot of words, and very particularly my dissenting opinion on a couple of these things is going to be more than 200 words. And I'd prefer to be able to offer it in my role as a CLAB member than as a individual speaking in public hearing during the city council deliberations. But some of this stuff needs a hell of a lot of background that we're not going to be able to get in 200 words per person. So I'm not in support of the motion.
Okay. Well, mine's going to be very easy because Kristen and I, working behind the scenes, have not been able to get me into an editable or reviewable, or I think anything other than a reviewable mode. So I won't be making any comments unless I actually can make comments. But, oh well. Next, I'm looking for the agenda. Policy suggestion forms. I thought we had done this. Kristen or Kathy?
We did. We had this on the agenda at the October hearing, and the board asked us to continue it to this meeting. to provide some additional time to comment on the forms that were provided.
Okay. In that case, is there anyone who wants to present a point of view since Jeff missed his public comment period? Is there someone that can comment for Jeff?
Are you guys talking about Jeff Guard?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can certainly speak to what he was going for, what the document was related to. It's essentially a grandfathering provision to allow for businesses to get relicensed in the case that a license expires or an application issue is brought up. It would have preserved the station as it stood, and there are several other businesses that have been impacted by this. I think the courts have ruled that Jeff's provision is definitely important. So it's not exactly a cut and dry situation. I'm sure Kathy has an opinion on this also, but I think more than anything, Jeff's proposal was a procedural issue to make sure that businesses don't get shut down on a lack of grandfathering because they're in what the city now considers to be an unlicensable location. It is complicated. I'm not suggesting that anybody take my information as why they would vote one way or the other, but it will streamline what will inevitably become expensive and difficult fights for the city to further rules that were created back in 2012, 2013. A lot has changed since then. Recreational has come in since then. So Jeff's proposal will preserve legacy businesses in the city should they run into any issues.
Kristen, I know
if they can get their things rectified with the city to the satisfaction of the licensing group.
Kristen, I know you came in after the fact, and Kathy, do you want to comment?
I'll just comment that the information was in your packet when this was brought up in 2018 with the responses of council and the city staff. All that information's in your packet already. And another note, I noticed that somebody turned off track changes on this document, and I've turned it back on, but please be really careful not to turn off track changes or we won't see edits that people make.
Yeah, I didn't realize you could turn it off for other people.
Yeah, to clarify, you got to make sure that you are not editing that document. You are just suggesting.
No, you can edit it. It shows in red line who did it.
It was probably
It's just that you have to you can't turn off that function.
Well, it's got to be in the reviewing function. If you're doing it based on the reviewing or edit, don't do it in the editing function. Do it in the reviewing function. And then there is a track changes as well, but it depends on which platform I think you're using.
Okay.
Oh, somebody turned it off for everybody. They accepted all the changes.
Stacy thought she did it, but I can tell you I didn't do it because I haven't been able
It
to get
would
into
not
this.
surprise me, honestly. Like I worry about that because I'm definitely not good with these types of things. So if it was me, please tell me how not to do it again.
The good news, Kathy, is that I think using this platform, we can still, we still have record of any changes that were made through version control. So I don't think that information's been completely lost.
It's not completely lost, but it's really hard to go back and figure out who did what comments, and it won't be easy for everybody to see. So it's say don't hit any of the buttons on the top 2 ribbons, 3 ribbons.
Okay, Kate, your hand is still up.
You can still click. You can still click on the comments that are underlined, which are part of the changes, and it'll tell you who made that suggestion. So you can still click on those things.
Right, but when
yeah.
somebody turned it off and
Right.
accepted some changes, you can't.
Sure.
So if nobody, you can right click on the underlining or the comments and see who made them. But please don't click on anything on the ribbons above the document.
Okay.
I was going to add context to the conversation about the policy form. There was something that we had talked about last time that I think we were we were talking about it, and then I thought we were getting to the point where we may be getting towards a motion, and there was a conversation about, does it depend on what type of reason that the business was shut down, if it's for like tax purposes or payment versus selling to a minor or whatever it was. There were different, that was the conversation that I remember that we last spoke about before we kind of closed the discussion. So just wanted to remind people that that was part of the discussion that was going on at the time that we were talking about this policy suggestion form.
Alana?
Yeah, thanks, Kate, for jogging our memories on where it ended. We had a pretty active conversation on this when Jeff presented it at our last meeting. And I do want to make sure that it gets its due attention, so that if that's tonight, great. But if not tonight, that it stays on the agenda. This is, I think, in my opinion, in my perspective, some of the more important groundwork that we can do for the city.
I think I remember, but
I would motion that we.
I don't want to test
Yeah, I
my
would motion that
memory,
we
but
take.
maybe before you do that, I don't want to test my memory. I think I remember, but what was the reason the business was shut down again? Wasn't a
It
failure?
doesn't really matter in this. It doesn't matter in this situation. It's just the procedural approach that licensing takes when a business is put into a situation like that. If they rectified their ills with the city, they should have been allowed to reopen, and they weren't because of a technicality related to the grandfathering of their license. It had nothing to do with what they did wrong. They untimely filed their renewal application is what initially precipitated the issue. So I think this deserves a conversation in a much fresher segment of our meeting, because this is really important. People lost a lot of money, and we lost a business that was really good in the city because of something that did not justify the outcome. So obviously that's my opinion, but I think looking at the details, there's a reason why Jeff has spent as much time as he has going after this, even when there was no path to rectify this for the business that was affected. So
Yeah, and in as much as I represent this as a topic that we should take on, it's as the non-conforming use and the grandfathering generally to the industry, not as much specific to a certain case.
Yeah.
So do you want to put this off to another meeting and if nothing else, give Jeff a chance to talk next time, because we're tight on time.
yeah, I don't think we have enough time to really bring this one back out. I would motion that we move this to a conversation towards the beginning of our next meeting.
And do you want to frame the discussion in a wider?
I mean, for the grandfathering of non-conforming uses, I think that is the subject that we need to make a recommendation to council on, whether it be the recommendation that we adopt Jeff's proposal as written or something further. I think it's the grandfathering of non-conforming uses specific to this industry is a very important subject. It bankrupts or make a lot of businesses, and we need to make an informed recommendation to council on this.
Would it be wise to have Jeff reframe a new policy suggestion form?
I think, given that the city council has already had an opportunity to give their opinion on this, but it was a council that was formed 4 years ago, I would feel comfortable asking Jeff to reformulate and re-summarize his motion or his request. Give us an opportunity to get a new opinion, because while I do appreciate Kathy's reference to the fact that there is an opinion in there from 4 years ago, it's an opinion from 4 years ago. So I think we need to reconsider it in the light of the current industry.
Okay. I don't think we need a motion. Well, I don't know. Should we have a motion on that?
Well,
No,
Evan did
I'm just gonna
create a
ask Jeff to
motion.
resubmit.
Oh, okay.
Say what?
I'm gonna ask that we rediscuss this at the next meeting, but I'm going to specifically ask Jeff to submit a revised proposal before the comment period is over, what I believe is 10 days before our next meeting, 14 days before our next meeting. Can someone clarify that for me? John, how early does Jeff need to have a revision to that into you for it to make it to the reading packet?
Let me get that information for you.
John can provide that to Jeff directly. It's on the web page.
Yeah, go for it. Sweet.
Certainly.
That's fine by me.
Okay, I'll second your motion. Anyone need to discuss that before we vote on that motion? All right, and John, do you have a concept as to what that motion is?
Yes, it is to move this discussion earlier on the agenda for next meeting, and Jeff Guard will resubmit an updated version of the policy suggested for it.
Well, that's up to Jeff. We can't.
Well,
we can ask Jeff.
ask Jeff to submit for next.
I am actively drafting a message to him to redraft this so that we are forced to rediscuss it at this next meeting.
Okay. All right. We are on to matters from senior council.
We need to vote.
Oh, sorry, we didn't. Oh, you're right. We didn't vote. Is there anyone who? Well, why don't you do your roll call, John?
Certainly. Member Anderson.
Yes.
Member Christie.
Yes.
Member Green.
I think her mouth moved yes.
We need verbal confirmation for the record.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Keegan.
Yes.
Member Kunzman.
Yes.
Member Malone.
Support.
And Member Noble.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Member, motion passes.
Before we go on to matters from the senior council, I wanted to be noted that that was a unanimous vote. Look what we can do.
Way to go!
All right, senior council.
I don't have anything specific and I don't want to take Kristen's, I didn't have anything specific to this and I don't want to take Kristen's thunder. I just do want to make sure that the retreat next Monday accomplishes what you all want. So thank you all for things that you have put in the Jamboard. If there is any, I guess the question I'd really like answered too is what would need to happen next Monday for you all to feel the retreat was worth your time? And I don't know if that's something that people can answer now, or if you feel like you've already got it on the Jamboard, or if you just want to send comments to Kristen or me, but we will be meeting with the facilitator on Wednesday to do the final planning for it. So really want to make sure that it is worth your time and is helpful for the board going forward. So if there's anything that ideas that you haven't given or want to give or whatever, please do send them to us before Wednesday at noon, or include them on the Jamboard, or tell us now.
Does the retreat start with some kind of getting to know each other situation?
That's the type of thing we want. If that's what you would like, yes.
Okay,
Is that what you want?
Alana, if I can paraphrase our conversation, you and I conversed and we talked about how valuable that would be because we have not ever had a chance to do that in person, especially.
Yeah, it
not.
would be interesting to like reintroduce ourselves in person 2 years later.
Thank you.
But I don't know if I would recommend. I've been to retreats where you do some kind of gamification or game.
It's an icebreaker.
It could be, but some of them are pretty lame. I've been to, and I don't want a lame one.
It's not your choice, man. You're not the retreat moderator.
Uh-oh, Robin.
On that Jamboard, I think it's slide number 7. There's a slide that says, please identify whether you want the following topics addressed by CLAB and rank those, but there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Oh, wasn't there an attachment? Oh, Kristen, I had an attachment to the Jamboard that maybe didn't go out with the link. I forget what it was, but I do remember it was. So thank you for that reminder. We will get that taken care of.
Well, they were all ranked #1 because there were none. Any other comments about, oh, well, Kristen's gonna talk about the detail or the mechanics of it right now, right?
That's all I had, yes.
Okay. Go, you got the floor, Kristen.
Sure. So I'm just going to go in order of the agenda item. So agenda topics for future CLAB meetings. We did include a list of suggestions that we've received so far in your meeting packet. Is there anything else that board members would like to add to that list? Great.
Sorry, Kristen, which list?
The last page of the meeting packet is a list of suggestions for future meetings. And we kind of put this list together based on our notes from past suggestions. So it's just kind of an ongoing list that we're keeping, and members asked us to put that list in the packet going forward. So that's what we'll continue to do. And then, in this agenda item for each meeting, just provide an opportunity if any members want to add to that list. So once we get through hospitality and everything else you'd like to talk about, we can focus on other topics as well. Robin?
Thanks, Kristen. I would just clarify on that list that the educational resource that's there that was specific to the Colorado Department of Public Health and Education and MEDs, the sort of educational resource that's given out with every concentrate purchase in the state now. So it would be specific to that particular handout.
Thank you. We'll clarify that.
Okay.
And to clarify, are you adding those to the seventh slide of
I'm
the
doing
Jamboard?
that now.
Okay, so then we could add some there, and then the ranking would be based on what's been added.
And we can add more topics too.
Yes.
There were just 2 articles today because this week is the 10th anniversary of, I'm sure you all saw the same articles I saw about 10th anniversary of cannabis being approved in the state of Colorado.
Yeah, Amendment 64, but not the market.
Yeah. Amendment 64, sorry.
Yeah, my store is 13 years old, so
Your what is?
it's been a little longer than that.
Oh,
My store is 13 years old. So.
Amendment 64, sorry. I stand corrected.
Also wanted to let the board know that the meeting that's scheduled in January for the first Monday of January actually falls on a city holiday for New Year's. So we'll be moving the January meeting to the second Monday of the month, which is Monday, January 9th. So just a heads up about that schedule change for next year.
And you'll send out a meeting change.
Sure, yeah, we can send out a meeting invitation to the board.
Okay. All right, so you want to tell us, oh, go ahead.
On the jam, are we on the Jamboard? I just have some questions.
Go for it.
Sure. What questions do you have?
Should we add our name? I see people doing that and I'm happy to do that, but.
It was made so you can be anonymous if you want. So add your name if you don't want to be anonymous.
Okay. And everyone has access to this because it's due tomorrow, right?
Correct. The deadline for the Jamboard is tomorrow.
Is that end of day?
I just want to make sure people can see my comments because I can see.
I can.
Okay, good. All right.
Yeah, I see some good stuff.
Is end of day okay if it's like 10 p.m.?
Yeah, we'll do them on Wednesday morning because we meet with Heather in the afternoon.
7:59 a.m. How about that? Okay.
Sure.
Kristen?
And then just a couple of notes for the retreat. So I think you all know, but the retreat's going to be held at the Fire Training Center, which is at the reservoir. And I'll be sending out some instructions for how to access the facility. But one thing I really wanted to highlight for the board is the main entrance through the reservoir is going to be closed. So everyone will need to access the facility through the side entrance, which is off, excuse me, off of Diagonal. So like I said, I'll be sending out instructions, but if you're using your GPS, for example, make sure that it's not taking you to the main reservoir entrance because that's going to be closed. You'll have to turn around and go up back through the side entrance. So just a heads up about that. I also wanted to mention that we will be providing some food during the retreat. Haven't figured out the exact menu yet. It'll probably be something like bagels or burritos or something along those lines. But if you have any dietary restrictions, please email those to me so we can make sure that we have something that will fit everyone's diet.
Two things. So in order to access if you're going north on the diagonal, don't cross over the median, the police, whatever, the place where you're not supposed to cross over to get to you're supposed to go up to the stoplight and come back down. And then for Kate's not going to be able to make it in person. Do we have a way to have some hybridity? I'm making up a word.
And just to be clear, like I don't expect any of that. I planned to attend, and there were just some extenuating circumstances, and I couldn't do it. But I would never think that there would be any virtual kind of video aspect of that. But if y'all had like a conference room, one of those conference call things that I could just call in on, I don't even have to obviously comment, but it'd be nice to know what the conversation is about. And I do apologize that it didn't work out. So I will miss seeing you all. So
we originally weren't anticipating setting up the room to be virtual, but let me check in with my point of contact over at the Fire Training Center and see what options we have, Kate, and I'll send those to you when I have a little more information.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't want to make anybody's life harder. So if it doesn't work out, even if it's the day of and we're like, it's not working, it is what it is. So thanks.
Can you CC me on that, Kristen?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna be there. I'm just.
And before we do that, let's make sure it's not violating city policy. If we have it remote for some, we may need to have it remote for the entire public since it's open to the public. And so we need to do some checking for internal city procedures before we can do that.
Okay.
Thanks, Kathy. That's all that I had, unless anyone has any questions.
Then let's go on to members from the chair and members of the board. Brian, do you have any other issues that you want to present? Alana, do you want to at least bring up a topic?
Yeah, I missed the submission period, but it'll be in the next packet. I got some legal advice on how industry should look at and handle the topic of conflict of interest and recusal. And I thought it would be a good resource for the board and the membership, even just to kind of have and memorialize, as there are 2 dedicated industry seats on the board. And I know that there's questions around leveraging our expertise while navigating that we're part of the industry. So I'll provide that for the next packet, or it's already been provided. And then I'll just stay on the agenda for the next meeting after we have that document. Thanks, Tom. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Just a reference question. When you allude to getting legal insight, is that just your lawyer, or is it's like an industry?
Oh yeah, I just emailed Jeff Gard.
Your lawyer? Oh, okay.
I mean, Jeff Gard, he's been involved in the industry since the beginning of time, and I thought it's ordinance based, so I got his counsel on the matter, and he wrote up a memo.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So that makes it interesting because Jeff might want to comment on 2 different things. Would we allow Jeff to comment on 2 different things?
You don't need to have Jeff comment on it. Specifically, the advice is to say that industry members are allowed to have an opinion if the opinion is not one that would benefit their business exclusively. It would be impossible for Alana and I to present opinions on this industry that could benefit our businesses or hurt our businesses if we were every single thing we voted on has an impact directly on our businesses because we are operators in the city. The reality is that were we to be excluded from voting on anything that impacted our businesses, we would have to recuse ourselves from every vote. And the basis and purpose of us being involved is to express the opinions of industry. I think the clarification that Alana is referring to is the recusal of yourself or of herself or myself from any vote that would benefit us as an operator in the industry is not the same as us having to recuse ourselves. Like the example Jeff used for me was I would have to recuse myself if the vote was you can only put hospitality businesses between 28th and 30th on Mapleton. Well, obviously that would benefit me exclusively and I would have to recuse myself, but making a vote about where hospitality businesses could operate, if it were to coincide with where my business could operate, as well as everyone else's, I do not have to recuse myself. So I think fundamentally the vote of or Alana recusing herself on a vote related to everyone being allowed to have concentrate in a hospitality license was an inappropriate recusal.
Well, it might be interesting. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted you guys to have the background document, and I think that's a better springboard for the discussion, and look forward to it in December, and look forward to seeing y'all on Monday.
Okay, so is there any other items of business? I will send these two. Did everybody catch there was I can't remember where I saw the two articles. They came across my screen. Just summarizing the Amendment 64 in the past 10 years.
Just to clarify, Jeff just got back to me and said that he's already working on it and he will submit to council, or he will submit to the board the modifications to his proposal so that they can be re-reviewed.
Okay.
So he's on it.
Thank you.
It is forthcoming.
Just in there as is. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn, anyone?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, second one. And any opposition to that or abstention? Okay. See you all next Monday.
Thank you all. Thank you, staff.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, staff.
Thanks.
Hi, thanks. Thanks, staff.
Staff.
Oh, wait, is Kristen still on? Kristen's not on anymore. Darn. She could have guided me through. John.